After being reborn, I gave up competing with Liu Yuanshan's childhood sweetheart for a spot in the factory. He gave half of his salary to his childhood sweetheart, and I didn't stop him. While he was accompanying his childhood sweetheart in the hospital during childbirth, I had already bought a ticket to go south. Finally, he said he would agree to marry me, as long as I adopted the child of his childhood sweetheart. I turned around and boarded the train to Guangzhou. In this life, I not only want great wealth and prosperity, I also want to completely avoid the miserable fate of marrying Liu Yuanshan in my previous life. 1. Looking at the layoff notice handed to me by the workshop director, I felt a moment of dizziness. Just a second ago, I was lying alone in the hospital bed, filled with resentment and unwillingness. The disdainful look in Liu Yuanshan's eyes as he left kept replaying in my mind. The next second, I was back 25 years ago. Xiao Wen. The factory's performance isn't good, and there's nothing I can do, the director said. My eyes stung with sadness. I had actually returned to my youth. I took the thin piece of paper with trembling hands and glanced down at it. The few words on it declared that I had lost my stable job. I'm better than Ran Shumian in all assessments. Is it Liu Yuanshan's idea to lay me off? My voice betrayed no emotion. Although I already knew the answer, I still asked the question. The director looked feel difficult and let out a sigh. Xiao Wen, the list hasn't been officially announced yet. Why don't you go home and talk to Director Liu again? The image of Liu Yuanshan's face, always as cold as ice towards me, flashed in my mind. Talk to him. He wouldn't even want to listen to a single extra word from me. This was his decision after all. In his eyes, I was nothing but a village woman who didn't even graduate from high school. I only got a job in the factory thanks to the favor my father had done for his family, and he was the outstanding and promising young Director Liu. If my father hadn't saved Liu Yuanshan's father, who had fallen off a cliff many years ago, our lives would have never intersected. The person he recognized as worthy of standing beside him was his childhood sweetheart, Ran Shumian, never me. Thinking of this, I gave a calm smile. Director, I accept the layoff. My sudden acceptance stunned the director. It seemed he didn't expect me to accept the result so easily. Xiao Wen, aren't you going to fight for it? Once you leave, there's no going back. I shook my head stubbornly and said briskly, no need, the outside world is much broader. The director looked at me, not understanding, his eyes full of confusion. The factory is better than the outside. Our factory will surely pull through sooner or later. He didn't know that in 2 years, this place would undergo earth-shattering changes. And this layoff was just the beginning of the tide. I took the layoff notice and went to pack my things. Before leaving the factory, looking at the layoff list posted on the bulletin board, I smiled with relief. 2. In my previous life, I used all means to compete for this spot to stay in the factory. I didn't want to lose this job that I relied on to make a living. Even more, I didn't want to lose the only symbol of identity that could rival Ran Shumian's. This job was one of the few things that allowed me to hold my head up in front of Liu Yuanshan. Liu Yuanshan was every girl's dream lover, tall, handsome, from a good family, and with an outstanding temperament, and I managed to get engaged to him thanks to the kindness my father had shown his family. I had no reason to give him up to someone else. In my previous life, I managed to stay in the factory by squeezing out Ran Shumian, who had somehow gotten pregnant, thanks to my good work performance. However, from then on, Liu Yuanshan became even colder towards me. Even after we got married under the urging of Uncle Liu, he never spent the night at home and often stayed in the factory dormitory. We never shared a bed except for the night of our wedding when he was drunk. I could only catch a fleeting glimpse of his tall figure when the factory held general staff meetings. 5 years passed like this, and then he suddenly brought back a boy who was over 5 years old. He said the boy was an orphan of a friend. Since we didn't have children of our own, we adopted the boy. I treated the boy as my own and took care of him wholeheartedly. I gave him everything he wanted, all the delicious food and nice things. But his favorite person was still Liu Yuanshan. Every year, he looked forward to going to his father during the summer vacation and traveling with him. Ridiculously, it wasn't until the end of my life that I found out. Over the past 25 years, my husband, who only ever appeared on our marriage certificate, spent all his vacations with Ran Shumian in Guangzhou. It turned out that after being laid off, Ran Shumian caught up with the wave of reform and opening up. Being busy with work, she had no time to take care of the child, so she entrusted the child to Liu Yuanshan, while I was getting up early and going to bed late to take care of their child. They went to many places that I had only seen on TV. They saw the sea together, climbed Mount Tai together, and visited Lingyin Temple together. while my world was always just the factory, home, the assembly line, and the kitchen. It was only about taking care of other people's children and looking after the elderly Uncle Lou. When I saw those photo albums full of memories in Lu Yuanchen's office, I fell ill and could no longer get out of bed. I finally understood what nothing is more sorrowful than the death of the heart meant. I thought that even though Lu Yuanchen was cold to me, he still regarded me as his wife. When he was desperately running around for the factory's performance, I took care of everything at home for him. Surely he would remember my kindness in his heart, even though the neighbors were all sympathizing with me, pitied me, talked about me, taunted me. They said I had a husband but lived as if I didn't. Some people even used me as a negative example to teach their daughters, saying that this was what happened when you were with a man who didn't love you. I never paid attention to these words and never regretted my choices, but at the end of my life, lying in bed, I regretted it. Lu Yuanchen and the child I raised came to visit me. Lu Yuanchen came to fulfill his last obligation as a husband, to prepare for my funeral in advance, and the child I raised asked me softly in my ear, "Mom, where did you put your jewelry and silver dollars?" I endured the pain, opened my cloudy eyes, and squeezed out a hoarse voice from my throat, "Get out, I'm not your mother." He came to see me because he wanted my inheritance. Even if I donated everything, I wouldn't leave them a single cent. As early as the day I was pronounced dead, I had donated all my inheritance, but even so, at the last moment of my life, I still regretted my past decisions. Why was I so obsessed with Lu Yuanchen? He was just a man, not worth sacrificing my otherwise wonderful life. 3. Before I got home, I was stopped by my neighbor, Sister Lu, at the entrance of the alley. Her round face was full of envy. "Xiaomei, you're so lucky. Director Lu carried a TV set home today. Hurry up and go home to have a look." As she spoke, Sister Lu grabbed my arm and pulled me towards the alley. She clearly also wanted to see the TV as soon as possible. I originally wanted to tell her not to follow, because I knew very well, the TV would definitely not be at the home where Lu Yuanchen and I lived. When my parents passed away, the factory took back the house, and I had to wait for a new one to be allocated. Because I had nowhere to live, Uncle Lu suggested that I move in with Lu Yuanchen. Looking at Sister Lu's excited eyes, I changed my mind. I let her push me back home. This house had the best layout in the alley, with 2 bedrooms and a living room, spacious and bright. Lu Yuanchen often stayed at the factory and didn't come back every day. At the moment, he wasn't at home, and of course, there was no brand new TV in the living room. Sister Lu looked around and gave me a meaningful look towards the bedroom where I lived. "Xiaomei, is the TV in your room?" Before I could answer, a soft and sweet voice from next door answered Sister Lu. "Brother Yuanchen, you're so kind. With this TV, I can learn English." 4. As soon as Sister Lu heard this, she widened her eyes and dragged me to push open the gate of the next door courtyard. This was the first time I saw Lu Yuanchen after being reborn. He had his back to me, quietly letting Ran Shumian wipe the sweat from his forehead. When she saw me at the door, Ran Shumian withdrew her hand, the corners of her mouth curling slightly. "Sister-in-law is back. Brother Yuanchen gave me a TV. I'll cook tonight to thank you both." Ran Shumian was very beautiful, with snow-white skin and particularly charming eyes. She was wearing a loose light yellow dacron shirt. The collar of the shirt was slightly open, revealing her prominent collarbones, which made people's minds wander. Her limbs were still slender, but her belly was slightly rounded. I didn't respond to her, but Sister Lu couldn't hold back. She pointed at the TV on the table and asked, "Wow, I thought Director Lu bought this precious TV for his fiancée." Lu Yuanchen had already turned around. His gaze towards me was completely indifferent. "What does she need a TV for? Shumian is preparing for the college entrance examination. She needs it more." Ran Shumian looked up at the man in front of her, her eyes burning with passion. Sister Lu looked at me in surprise, her eyes urging me to say something. I looked at the brand new TV and indeed didn't have much desire for it. However, I wasn't going to let Ran Shumian have it so easily either. "Don't I need to take the college entrance examination more? I also need this TV." He knew very well that I would be laid off, so I actually needed the college entrance examination more than Ran Shumian. I looked straight into Lu Yuanchen's eyes, and he guiltily averted his gaze. "Wait a little longer. I'll buy you one when I get my next month's salary. Do you have any extra TV purchase tickets?" I retorted. Lu Yuanchen opened his mouth but didn't say anything. TV purchase tickets were in short supply. Even if you had money, you couldn't buy a TV without a ticket. Finally, under Ran Shumian's unwilling gaze, with her lower lip tightly bitten. Lu Yuanchen moved the TV back home. Shumian, leave it to me. I'll get you another one. Ran Shumian saw him to the door and said with a sullen face, sister-in-law isn't happy that you gave me something. Don't spend money on me in the future. If I can't get into college, it's just my bad luck. With that, she slammed the courtyard gate shut. When we got home, Lu Yuanchen's face was so gloomy that it seemed like ink could drip from it. You had to fight for even a TV. Now are you satisfied? I ignored him and focused on the news broadcast on TV. Business opportunities were hidden within. Seeing that I didn't respond, Lu Yuanchen stood in front of the TV, blocking the screen. Now that you've gotten the TV, don't compete with Shumian for the spot to stay in the factory. 5. This sentence finally piqued my interest. I hadn't even confronted him about ordering my layoff, and he brought it up on his own. Then I'd like to ask you, Director Lu, I'm better than Ran Shumian in all assessments. Why should I be the one to be laid off? Lu Yuanchen frowned and shook his head at me. You tell me why. Just because you're engaged to me. If you're laid off, I can support you. Shumian is a woman, and she's pregnant. What would she do if she's laid off? How touching his words were. He could support me, but in fact, with my own abilities, I didn't need anyone to support me. I could be self-sufficient. Yet he stepped in and made me lose my job, forcing me to rely on others. I didn't want to argue with him anymore. It was completely pointless. Seeing that I didn't respond, his furrowed brows relaxed slightly. From next month on, I'll give you half of my salary. And I'll lend the other half to Shumian. She needs to get more nutrition now. I sneered inwardly but still kept a poker face. Lu Yuanchen continued, we'll just tighten our belts for a few months. It'll be better once she gives birth. I thought about it, and the words of protest that came to my lips were swallowed back down. There was no point in saying more. He said it was a loan, but how could he bear to let Ran Shumian pay it back? Moreover, after she gave birth, she would need to recuperate and raise the child. I'm afraid that half of the salary would never be paid back. However, that was his own willing choice, and it had nothing to do with me anymore. Whatever. These 3 words expressed my attitude. A rare smile appeared on Lu Yuanchen's usually cold face. I'm glad you understand. Shumian and I grew up together. I can't just stand by and watch her suffer. If you care about her so much, why don't you care about who the father of the child in her belly is? I still looked at the TV without even raising my eyelids as I asked. Lu Yuanchen seemed to have been suddenly hit where it hurt, and his voice suddenly grew louder. She was bullied. Don't ever mention this again. 6. Having lost my job, the most important thing now was to make money. When the neighbors heard that I had been laid off, they all came to comfort me. Don't worry, Director Lu can support the family on his own. Lu Yuanchen also kept his word and gave me half of his salary the next day. Then he threw himself into Ran Shumian's courtyard. But I'd rather beg for food than rely on Lu Yuanchen. Over the not-too-high courtyard wall, Ran Shumian's sweet voice drifted over from time to time. Brother Yuanchen, cut me some fruit. Brother Yuanchen, my back is a little sore. Hang up the clothes for me. Brother Yuanchen, I don't want to go to the factory tomorrow. Can you tell the workshop director for me? Lu Yuanchen never complained. The sound of his footsteps going in and out of the courtyard could be heard. I ignored it and focused on tidying up my clothes. Once I found a place to live, I would move out of here sooner or later. Seeing the 2 stacks of brand new clothes at the back of the wardrobe, a pang of sadness still welled up in my otherwise calm heart. I had bought all the fabric with my own money and made these clothes for Lu Yuanchen using a sewing machine. I made 1 piece a month, and in 2 years, I had made about 20 pieces. They lay quietly in the wardrobe, just as they had when I first gave them to Lu Yuanchen. Not a single one had been touched. What a waste. I might as well sell them on the black market. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my mind. In my previous life, not long after I married Lu Yuanchen, the Shaoqing shirt became popular all over the country. That kind of shirt with a turnover collar and a cinched waist soon became in short supply. I could make some first and sell them on the black market to preemptively occupy this market. With this thought in mind, I got to work right away and took out the tin box by my bedside. Inside were several cloth purchase tickets that I had saved for making clothes for Lu Yuanchen, as well as a savings book. The 1,000 yuan in the passbook was all the savings I had left. After spending dozens of yuan on buying fabric, I was busy for several days, working vigorously in front of the sewing machine. I didn't notice Lu Yuanchen appearing at my bedroom door at all. Isn't there any dinner at home? At this time usually, he would be having dinner with Ran Shumian next door. I was busy making clothes and just had a few bites to eat casually. I didn't prepare his meal at all. He looked at the pile of colorful fabrics in front of me with dissatisfaction. Now that you're not working, can't you even cook properly? Suddenly being questioned, I didn't stop my sewing work and retorted, go next door if you want to eat, there's none here. Hearing the bluntness in my words, he was taken aback for a moment, then changed the topic. Aren't you preparing for the college entrance examination? Why do you still have the leisure to make clothes? His tone was reproachful and disdainful. The college entrance examination was just an excuse for me not to give the TV to Rand Shumian for free. In my previous life, I also tried to take the college entrance examination, but I really wasn't cut out for studying. One should have self-awareness. I believed that with my own hands, I wouldn't starve myself. I stopped what I was doing and put a finger to my lips. Shoo, don't you hear? The person next door seems to have fallen. I hope the baby in her belly isn't hurt. Even though it was completely quiet next door, Lu Yuanchen immediately stood up. He listened intently for a moment, then turned and ran out, but after a while, he came back. I couldn't figure out why he kept coming to me today. This would have been impossible in the past. The next moment, he stammered and answered my question. My dad called today, after hearing that you were laid off. He wants me to marry you next month. I had originally planned to go and talk to Uncle Lou about calling off the engagement in person. After a while, unexpectedly, I waited for his urging to get married first. I remained silent, waiting for the conditions he would propose next. Sure enough, he turned his head away and avoided looking into my eyes as he continued, can you go and tell my dad that we'll get married next year? I really don't have the time right now. Of course he didn't have the time. He was busy with work every day and also busy taking care of the pregnant woman. He really didn't have time to get married. I nodded. I'll go and make things clear to Uncle Lou tomorrow. Hearing my answer, Lu Yuanchen seemed to heave a sigh of relief, and the gloom on his face disappeared in an instant. Having settled things with me, he immediately turned and left with brisk steps. Then, the creaking sound of the courtyard door opening and closing came from next door. In the room alone, under the dim light, I sneered. I would go to see Uncle Lou, however, not to postpone the marriage, but to completely get rid of you. Lu Yuanchen. 7. The next day, I got up before dawn. You had to go early to the black market. It would be too late if you went later. After simply cooking myself a bowl of millet porridge, I carried my bundle on my back. Inside were the more than 20 men's clothes that Lu Yuanchen had never worn, as well as the 10 women's clothes I had just made, before going out. I also put the jade bracelet that the Lu family gave me during the engagement into the bundle. As soon as I opened the door and walked out, I unexpectedly ran into Lu Yuanchen, who had just returned home, unprecedentedly. He was holding a bamboo steamer of buns and a bowl of millet porridge in his hands. When he saw me carrying a bundle and about to go out, he froze in place. It's so early, where are you going? I also didn't know what he was doing at home so early. He usually didn't have breakfast with me at home. He always went to eat at Rand Shumian's place, so I just replied indifferently, I have something to do, and continued walking out. Behind me came the clear sound of the porcelain bowl being placed on the table, and then Lu Yuanchen grabbed my wrist. What could you possibly have to do so early? Sit down and have breakfast first. Shumian made it early in the morning. I withdrew my hand, which he was gripping tightly, and stubbornly didn't sit down. Seeing that I was still standing, Lu Yuanchen sighed. I thought about it last night. I'm not relieved leaving you to see my dad alone. Let's go together after breakfast. Subconsciously, I retorted. What are you not relieved about? Afraid that I'll change my mind at the last minute. Lu Yuanchen's pupils trembled, and he avoided my gaze as he said softly, no. I'm worried that you won't be able to find him. I'll take you there. In the past 2 years, I had delivered meals to Uncle Lou countless times. He knew this very well, yet at this moment, he was worried that I wouldn't be able to find the place. Obviously, Rand Shumian had said something to him last night, making him worried that I would change my mind, which was why he wanted to go with me. Seeing that the sky was getting lighter and lighter, I became anxious. Now, I didn't have the time to tangle with him here, so I said expressionlessly, no need, I'll go by myself. If you're not relieved about me, you can ask your dad yourself after I come back. With that, I strode out of the house without looking back. The person behind me was still shouting, aren't you going to have breakfast either? I ignored him. I wasn't a stray dog on the street. I wouldn't fawn over him just because he threw a bone when he was in a good mood. On the way to the black market, I carefully avoided the early risers and groped my way to the black market trading site. It was a hidden alley that few people came to on ordinary days, but at this moment, there were already several people leaning against the wall, sizing up everyone who stepped into the alley with shrewd eyes. I nervously hugged the bundle in front of my chest. However, an hour later, when the sky began to turn fish belly white, all my nervousness turned into joy. The clothes I brought were sold out quickly. The men's clothes I made for Lu Yuanchen were intended to be sold at a low price, so they were snapped up immediately, and although the beautiful women's clothes were a bit more expensive, they were still very popular. In the end, I earned a total of 150 yuan, which was almost as much as I had saved in half a year. The excitement made me forget the trouble of having to face Uncle Lu soon. It wasn't until I stood in front of his office that my mind started working overtime to organize my words. Uncle Lu was a man who valued friendship and loyalty. He personally arranged this engagement, hoping that Lu Yuanchen and I would be happy. He treated me like his own daughter. Unfortunately, in this life, I didn't want to be his daughter-in-law anymore. 8. I knocked on the office door, and a steady and imposing voice came from inside. "Come in." I pushed the door open and walked in slowly. When Uncle Lu looked up and saw it was me, a smile spread across his wrinkled face. This was the warmest smile I had seen since my parents passed away. But when I explained my intention of calling off the engagement, the smile disappeared and was replaced by extreme anger. Every wrinkle on his serious face was trembling. "This unfilial son, did he send you? He got you laid off and now wants to break off the engagement. Xiaomei, don't worry, I'll make him kneel and apologize to you and marry you immediately." I smiled faintly and shook my head. "Uncle Lu, I don't want to marry him." Uncle Lu was stunned. He couldn't have imagined that I didn't want to marry Lu Yuanchen. It was clear that in his heart, he also thought that I was punching above my weight by marrying Lu Yuanchen. "Xiaomei, are you serious?" I smiled calmly. "I don't want to live here anymore. I want to go and see the south. If I get married, I won't be free." "Uncle Lu, you won't force me to stay, will you?" Uncle Lu looked at me in silence, a hint of doubt in his eyes. But after a moment, he nodded slowly, as if in understanding. I knew very well that if I said it was because of Lu Yuanchen that I wanted to call off the engagement, Uncle Lu would make us get married even if he had to break his son's legs. But if I said it was my own wish not to marry, then he would respect my decision. Seeing Uncle Lu nod, I quickly took out the jade bracelet from the bundle and handed it to him solemnly. "Uncle Lu, I'm returning this bracelet to you. I also have another favor to ask. Can I stay in that house for a while? I'll move out soon. Also, I want to tell him about the broken engagement in person." There was nothing but regret and guilt in Uncle Lu's eyes, and he readily agreed. "All right, don't worry about the house. From now on, it's your home." I smiled faintly and kept silent. How could a place with Lu Yuanchen in it be a home? 9. After a busy day, I got home a little after 8 o'clock. The house was pitch black. While the lights next door were bright, I pushed open the door to my room, put down the bundle, and just turned on the light when the courtyard door creaked open. "You're back. Did you see my dad today?" I didn't turn around and continued calculating accounts on the notebook with a pen and paper. When I had just parted ways with Uncle Lu, he stuffed 500 yuan and a piece of paper into my hand. The paper had a name and an address written on it. He said it was an old friend of his who was now in Guangzhou. I could contact him when I got there, now, including all my savings. As long as I made some more money through the black market, I could go to Guangzhou. An indescribable excitement welled up in my heart, and the corners of my mouth involuntarily turned up. I didn't notice at all that Lu Yuanchen had already sat down next to me and had been looking at me. When I looked up, I met his somewhat dazed expression. When he saw me looking up, he immediately averted his gaze and furrowed his brows slightly. "Didn't you hear what I said? Did you see my dad today?" I said everything that needed to be said. "Your dad agreed," I said indifferently. Lu Yuanchen's expression relaxed a lot, and he nodded. "I'm sorry to have wronged you this time. I'll definitely make it up to you after Shumian gives birth." As soon as he finished speaking, as if on cue, Ran Shumian came in, supporting her waist. When she saw Lu Yuanchen sitting close to me, she immediately pouted. "Brother Yuanchen, why haven't you come back yet?" The word back was really funny. This was originally Lu Yuanchen's home, but he couldn't stay here for long. "Why did you get up? Be careful." Lu Yuanchen stood up to help her. After settling her firmly on the wooden chair padded with a quilt, he sat back on the chair next to me. After sitting down, Ran Shumian looked around the room. When she saw the fabric next to the sewing machine, her eyes lit up. "Sister-in-law, this fabric is so beautiful. Are you making clothes?" Lu Yuanchen also chimed in. "I was going to ask you the same thing. What are you doing buying so much fabric?" It's a waste. I didn't say a word and just silently covered the colorful fabrics with a white cloth, but Ran Shumian still stared at the fabrics. Brother Yuanshan, now that my belly is big, I don't have any suitable clothes to wear. Since sister-in-law is so skillful, can she make me a couple of pieces? No problem, she made quite a few for me. She can make you a couple of pieces too. Lu Yuanshan agreed readily, then turned back and pressured me with his eyes. There's a lot of fabric, and you're free now. Just make a few pieces for Shumian on the side. I closed my eyes, feeling extremely annoyed. I had originally wanted to ignore them, but they insisted on provoking me. I didn't pretend anymore and pointed to the door with a cold face. Take your childhood sweetheart and get out. 10. Lu Yuanshan was stunned. I had never spoken to him in such a tone before. He sat there staring at me blankly, his face turning red. His eyes remained fixed on me, as if trying to figure out if there was a ghost possessing me. Finally, Ran Shumian broke the silence. She said pitifully, sister-in-law doesn't welcome me. I'll go back. With that, she stood up with her pregnant belly and slowly walked towards the door. Lu Yuanshan still looked at me in disbelief, as if he hadn't heard Ran Shumian's words at all. When Ran Shumian reached the door, she looked back and called softly, Brother Yuanshan. Only then did Lu Yuanshan look at her and casually said, You go back. Ran Shumian's eyes immediately welled up with tears. She bit her lip, hesitated for a moment, and then left. For a moment, only Lu Yuanshan and I were left in the room. The air seemed to thin out in an instant, making it hard to breathe. Finally, Lu Yuanshan couldn't stand it anymore and sighed, You're also a woman. Why do you have to target Shumian? Her parents cut off relations with her because she got pregnant before marriage. She has no one to rely on. After all, you've been neighbors for 2 years. Isn't it only right that you help each other? I sneered. So, I owe her and should make clothes for her. Lu Yuanshan was at a loss for words. He clenched his fist on the table, and his tone became serious. When May, be more reasonable. I smiled and asked him, My fiancé almost lives at her place. Isn't that reasonable enough? Lu Yuanshan stood up abruptly, his voice several degrees louder. Our relationship is as pure as that of childhood sweethearts. What do you know? I sneered. I didn't know and didn't want to know whether their relationship was really that of innocent childhood sweethearts or if they were using that as a cover for something else. I didn't care at all. The more one tries to hide something, the more one reveals it. 11. That night ended unhappily. Lu Yuanshan slammed the door and left. After it quieted down, I finally had time to continue making clothes. The sewing machine clicked away, and my heart gradually calmed down. The next morning, I got up early again, ready to go to the black market to sell clothes. As soon as I opened the door to my room, I heard the sound of deep breathing coming from Lu Yuanshan's room. I wondered to myself that although he was so angry last night, he still came back to stay, but it had nothing to do with me, so I went out directly. For the next whole month, I left early in the morning and returned at noon, then spent the afternoons and evenings making clothes in my room. The days passed peacefully and busily. The only unusual thing was that Lu Yuanshan came home more frequently. Sometimes, when he suddenly came back in the evening and saw the empty kitchen, he would even open the door to my room and ask, Is there no dinner? And my answer was always to shake my head and tell him to go next door to eat. Every time, it was hard to tell what he was feeling. He would just silently close the door to my room. Several times I thought he had gone next door to be with Ran Shumian, but when I opened the door, he was sitting in the living room, reading a book by the dim light, but I never paid attention to him and just treated him like air. After getting water, I would go back to my room. Ran Shumian made a lot of noise next door several times. Sometimes a bowl would break, and sometimes a flower pot would fall. After Lu Yuanshan rushed over to check, he would come back soon. This made me, who was drying my hair in the living room in my pajamas at the time, extremely embarrassed. I could only return to my room with a cold face. This peace lasted until one noon in autumn. I had gotten up too early in the morning and was taking a nap in my room. The door of the house was pushed open violently and slammed against the wall with a heavy thud. I was jolted awake from my dream. Lu Yuanshan stormed up to the bedside, grabbed my collar, and yanked me out of bed. I've been nice to you for a few days, and you're pushing your luck. How dare you hit Shumian's belly? My mind went blank for a moment, and everything went dark before my eyes. All I could hear was Lu Yuanshan's roar. When the darkness in front of my eyes cleared, I shook off Lu Yuanshan and screamed, I haven't even seen Ran Shumian today. Where would I have gone to hit her belly? Lu Yuanshan looked at me with disappointment, his voice harsh, still trying to deny it, and one next door saw it. You threw a sandbag from our yard into Shumian's yard. My mind went blank, and then I remembered. When I came back from the black market today, I saw a cloth sandbag in the yard. After I picked it up, Shumian's voice happened to float over the courtyard wall. She said she accidentally dropped the sandbag into our yard and asked me to throw it back to her. Without thinking much, I casually tossed the sandbag over the wall and then went back to my room to sleep. When the sandbag was thrown over, I clearly heard the sound of it hitting the ground. There's no way it could have hit Shumian. Gritting my teeth, I enunciated each word sharply. I didn't do it, and I'll never admit to something I didn't do. With that, I jumped out of bed, rushed out of the courtyard gate, and into Shumian's house. Lu Yuanchen was startled by my sudden move and shouted at me to stop from behind. I went straight to Shumian's bedside. She was lying on the bed, clutching her belly. When she saw me come in, she exclaimed in horror, "Don't hurt my baby, please don't." I stepped forward quickly and slapped her across the face. "Don't worry, I won't hurt your baby. I'm just slapping your face." I slapped Shumian twice before Lu Yuanchen rushed in and pulled me away. "Wen Mei, are you crazy? How dare you hit Shumian?" I used all my strength to shake off Lu Yuanchen and sneered at his enraged expression. "If I bully her, I do it openly. Open your eyes and see clearly, these 2 slaps are from me." Lu Yuanchen had never seen me like this before and was stunned in place. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. In front of him, I had always been restrained, trying my best to show my best side. In fact, I'm naturally hot-tempered and can't stand being wronged, but in my previous life, I endured so much grievance because of him. In this life, I won't chagrin myself anymore. Shumian was already crying uncontrollably, and red, swollen slap marks were gradually appearing on both sides of her face. Lu Yuanchen quickly hugged her and patted her back to comfort her. "Stop crying, don't get too worked up and harm the baby." Then he turned to me and shouted, "Apologize to Shumian." I scoffed, "Apologize my ass. She wouldn't have gotten these 2 slaps if she hadn't been so provocative." 13. After this incident, Lu Yuanchen directly moved his bedding to Shumian's house. He stopped talking to me completely, as if punishing me in this way. Unfortunately for him, I was only too happy to be free without him around. But Shumian came to flaunt herself in front of me again. She was almost due to give birth, standing at the door with her big belly sticking out, eating an apple. It was as if she was holding that plate of peeled and sliced apples, specifically waiting for me. Brother Yuanchen peeled these for me. These 2 slaps were totally worth it. As she spoke, she picked up a piece of apple, popped it into her mouth, and said with satisfaction, "He also said that when the baby is born, he'll be the baby's father." Wen Mei, both his person and his heart are with me now. What can you do to compete with me? After saying that, she looked at me with a smug smile, showing no sign of weakness at all. Only at this moment did I truly realize from the bottom of my heart that in both my past life and this life, it wasn't that I wasn't good enough for Lu Yuanchen. Rather, a man like Lu Yuanchen, who has no sense of boundaries, deserves a woman as low class as Shumian. Thinking of this, I blurted it out, "I'm not competing. Congratulations, you've got yourself a 2-legged man. As for me, I would embrace a much broader world." In the past, when facing Shumian and Lu Yuanchen, I would unconsciously feel inferior. They came from good families and had a higher educational level than me. So, when facing Lu Yuanchen, I always involuntarily myself. And when facing Shumian, I always wanted to prove myself, feeling both inferior and arrogant. It was originally a messy game between the 2 of them, but I insisted on getting involved and lost myself in the process. In fact, there are far more meaningful things to do in life away from them. If all else fails, making money can be the guiding principle of my life. After all, if there's no meaning, at least there's money. After I finished speaking, Shumian looked confused. She widened her eyes and asked, "What do you mean?" I just smiled and didn't answer, then turned around and walked into the courtyard. 14. I bought a train ticket to Guangzhou, and it would depart in 2 days. Looking at that small ticket, I felt a surge of anticipation for the future. I packed my luggage, sold or gave away the things I didn't need, in the end, except for the furniture. There was no sign that anyone had ever lived in the room. Before leaving, I went to the black market one last time. Originally planning to say goodbye to the few vendors I did business with, unexpectedly, the Industrial and Commercial Bureau was cracking down on speculative activities, and I was detained. There was only 1 day left before the train to Guangzhou departed, and I was in a panic. Finally, after pleading with the staff for a long time, He agreed to let me make a phone call. The phone in Lu Yuanchen's office was answered, but it wasn't him, it's sister-in-law. Director Lu received an urgent call this afternoon and rushed to the hospital immediately. Which hospital? I asked anxiously. The second hospital. The second hospital was the best hospital in our area, especially for obstetrics. There was no need for further explanation. I smiled, hung up the phone, feeling ashamed of myself for even thinking of asking him for help. As time passed, one by one, the small vendors who had been brought to the Industrial and Commercial Bureau with me in the morning were picked up by their families. I was the only one left. I could only tell myself, it's okay, if I miss this train, there will be another one, it's just a few days delay, it's okay. Just when I was on the verge of despair, a familiar voice sounded behind me, steady and solemn. Xiaomei, what are you doing here? 15. I was lucky, Uncle Lu happened to be out on business. He bailed me out and took me home. As soon as we reached the yard, the dark windows of the house showed that no one was home. Uncle Lu's face immediately darkened. He sat at home for a long time, drinking 2 pots of tea, but Lu Yuanchen still didn't come back. This unfilial son, it's so late, and he still isn't home. Uncle Lu, I'm afraid he won't be coming back tonight, I said calmly. Uncle Lu glanced at me, got up, and went outside to look at the windows next door. They were also dark. His face grew even darker. Is he with that girl who got pregnant out of wedlock? I remained silent, not wanting to answer. Who Lu Yuanchen was with had nothing to do with me anymore. In 10 hours, I would be boarding the train to Guangzhou. Finally, unable to wait for Lu Yuanchen to return, Uncle Lu said he still had work at the unit and left in a huff. After a day of fear and anxiety, I was completely exhausted. I fell into a deep sleep as soon as I lay down in bed. 16. When I woke up in the morning, the sound of footsteps in the living room made me think there was a burglar. I peeked through the keyhole for a long time before I recognized that it was Lu Yuanchen who had come back. He had a stubble of beard on his face, and his chin was covered in a faint blue-black. When he saw me, he said casually, Shumian gave birth last night, it's a boy. Thinking of the boy who only cared about my property on my deathbed in my previous life, I showed a look of disgust. Lu Yuanchen caught that look, and he immediately became unhappy. What's that look for? Even if you don't like Shumian, the child is innocent. Why do you have so much hostility towards the child? I sneered slightly. How could he know that in my previous life, he hurt me the most, and this child was the second? I took care of him with all my heart as he grew up, but he always helped his biological mother deceive me. When I was suffering in bed, all he cared about was my property. Seeing that I remained silent, Lu Yuanchen stopped asking and softened his tone. I came back to discuss something with you. After all, Shumian isn't married. How will she get married in the future with a child? After we get married, let's adopt this child. I never expected that just a few hours before I left, I would hear such outrageous words from him. I was so speechless that I opened my mouth but couldn't say a word. Seeing that I didn't respond, Lu Yuanchen added, as long as you agree, we can get married immediately. I looked into his eyes, which were filled with confidence. It was ridiculous. In his eyes, I would readily accept such an absurd thing just to marry him sooner, as if the goal of my life was simply to marry him. I curled the corners of my mouth slightly and gave him a vague answer. Let's talk about it later. Ran Shumian needs you right now. Go to the hospital. Lu Yuanchen's eyes lit up, and a smile appeared on his previously stern face. When May, you're finally being reasonable. 17. As soon as Lu Yuanchen left, I grabbed my luggage and headed straight for the train station. The moment the train started moving, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief and freedom. After a 2-day train journey, I finally arrived in Guangzhou, this hot land. At first, I was unfamiliar with the place, but thanks to the note Uncle Lu gave me, I was able to contact his old friend. That uncle gave me a lot of help, and I gradually got used to life in Guangzhou. When I was working in the factory, I was always on the lookout for business opportunities. At that time, fashionable and high-end women's clothing from abroad was being introduced to the mainland via Hong Kong. Taking advantage of the geographical location, I came into contact with a lot of beautiful women's clothing and earned my first pot of gold. After that, things got easier. I soon became wealthy, set up my own factory, and bought my own house. In the 3rd year after I came to Guangzhou, I wrote a letter to Uncle Lu and enclosed 2,000 yuan to thank him for his help at that time. Just a week later, I received a reply. However, the letter was signed by Lu Yuanchen. Xiaomei, I'm glad to know that you're doing well in Guangzhou. I've submitted a leave application and am expected to arrive in Guangzhou next month. I'll come to take you home. The rest of the letter was full of trivial nonsense. In both my past and present lives, I never knew that Lu Yuanchen could say such cheesy love words. He said he missed me terribly, day and night, and that my image filled his mind. He said he had made a huge mistake, lost his true love, and now deeply regretted it. He also said he had already cut off all ties with Ran Shumian and was just waiting to take me home. Finally, he said that his only wish now was to find me, marry me, and have children with me. I casually tore up the letter and threw it into the trash. It was all nonsense, only a fool would believe it. 18. Lu Yuanchen didn't cut off ties with Ran Shumian because he truly wanted to. It was because the biological father of Ran Shumian's child came looking for them. That man was a hooligan. He damaged his genitals in a fight and could no longer have children. That's why he came to Ran Shumian for the child. And it was revealed that she wasn't forced into pregnancy at all. Instead, Ran Shumian had initiated flirting with him, had premarital sex, and then been abandoned. The Ran family cut off relations with her because they were ashamed of her, but Lu Yuanchen foolishly believed that she was an innocent girl. But now, the innocent image of Ran Shumian in Lu Yuanchen's heart had completely shattered. He no longer believed in her. However, Ran Shumian wasn't going to give up easily. She went to see Lu Yuanchen every day, even causing a scene in the factory, creating chaos everywhere. Due to his conduct issues, Lu Yuanchen was removed from his position as director and became an ordinary worker. Ran Shumian spread rumors in the streets and alleys that she and Lu Yuanchen had a sexual relationship, forcing him to marry her. Lu Yuanchen tried his best to clarify, saying he had never touched her. At this time, the neighbors all came forward to speak up. Aunt Wang next door said she often saw Lu Yuanchen staying overnight at Ran Shumian's house. Sister Lu at the entrance of the alley said she had seen Lu Yuanchen buying a TV for Ran Shumian with her own eyes, so there was no way there was nothing going on between them. Even the doctors at the second hospital said that when Ran Shumian gave birth, Lu Yuanchen had been by her side, taking care of her, and they were definitely a couple. I learned all this from letters written by the vendors I used to do business with at the black market. Lu Yuanchen still hadn't sorted out this mess, yet he had the nerve to say in his letter that he had cut off ties. It was ridiculous. 19. However, it seemed that Lu Yuanchen was really planning to come and see me. His letters arrived at a rate of one every 2 days, reporting every trivial detail of his life. I opened the first few letters out of curiosity, but later, I didn't even bother to open them. They were piled up in the corner of my office, gathering dust. 2 days before the date he had announced for his arrival in Guangzhou, the letters suddenly stopped. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Uncle Lu. He wrote in the letter that Lu Yuanchen was dead. He died the night before he was supposed to come to Guangzhou to find me. Lu Yuanchen was killed by Ran Shumian. Despite all the obstacles, Lu Yuanchen was determined to come to Guangzhou to find me. Since Ran Shumian couldn't keep him by her side, in a fit of desperation, she took his life. 18 stabs, each one carrying the deep resentment and unwillingness of this woman. Finally, before the break of dawn, the blood from the wound on her own wrist also drained out. 10 years later, my business spread across the country. After all, I have finally blossomed in this vast world. Lu Yuanchen's side story. I took care of Shumian in the hospital for 3 days, and then I accompanied her home. After settling her down at her home, I was going to go back and see Wen Mei. I wanted to talk to her again about adopting the child. Shumian was weak after giving birth and didn't want me to leave, but when she heard that I was going to discuss the child's matter, she nodded and let me go. Looking at her haggard and pale face, my heart tightened. It's really not easy for a woman to give birth. She has been through a life and death situation. I wonder if Wen Mei will become weak when she gives birth in the future. I shook my head and dismissed this thought. Wen Mei is so tough that giving birth won't change her in the slightest. When I got home, the tables and chairs in the living room were neatly arranged, and the tabletop was as clean as if it had just been wiped. It seems that since Wen Mei moved into this house, everything at home has been in good order. My bedding always smelled of the sun. After smelling the disinfectant in the hospital for 3 days, I kind of missed the smell of the sun now. The door of Wen Mei's room was tightly closed. I walked over and knocked on the door. Only silence greeted me. I turned the doorknob and opened the door. The scene that greeted my eyes made me freeze in place. No, something was wrong. Except for the bed and the table, all the items that should have filled the room with the breath of life had disappeared. I strode towards the wardrobe and opened it anxiously. It was empty, with nothing inside. She was gone. She left without saying a word, but where could she have gone? I didn't know. I just suddenly felt that it was a bit difficult to breathe, and I couldn't catch my breath. I needed fresh air. I ran all the way to Sister Lou's house at the entrance of the alley and asked anxiously, "Sister Lou, have you seen Xiaomei? All the things in her room are gone." Sister Lou was picking vegetables and said slowly, "She's gone, left a long time ago." "Where did she go?" I didn't even realize that my voice was trembling. "You're asking where she went now that she's already gone. What were you doing before?" "I don't know," Sister Lou said irritably and got up to close the door. From that day on, I searched many places and asked many people, but no one knew where she had gone. Finally, I had to tell my father about Wenmei's disappearance. My father made me kneel on the ground and gave me a good beating. That's when I found out that Wenmei had broken off the engagement with me when she went to see my dad that day. I thought she was looking forward to marrying me, but it turned out that she had planned to break off the engagement with me long ago. I suddenly felt a faint anger. At that moment, I told myself that if she was gone, then so be it. It would be best if she never came back, but I couldn't fall asleep at night. I could only get myself drunk as soon as I got off work. Now I go home every day, but I can no longer see that little woman who was earnestly making clothes in front of the sewing machine. The smell of the sun on the bedding, as time passed, also turned into a musty smell. Shumian still pestered me, but I always lost my focus when I was with her. She was very unhappy and said that it was a good thing that Wenmei was gone, so that no one would force me to marry her. However, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't be happy at all. Perhaps, deep down, I had already regarded her as my wife. I had been waiting all along to marry her. Things happened very suddenly. When Shumian's child was 2 years old, that wretched-looking man came to the door. That's when I realized that the childhood sweetheart I had been trying so hard to protect had always been a woman with a promiscuous nature. She had lied to me. I never wanted to see Ran Shumian again. Wenmei left because of her existence, but I had driven Wenmei away because of such a two-faced person. I really regretted it. When I received news about Wenmei from my father, I was being criticized for my conduct issues. Seeing that she had lost my trust, Ran Shumian started to show her true colors and act shamelessly. I was physically and mentally exhausted from her torment and also lost my position as the factory director. I was living like a walking dead every day. But the address of Wenmei's letter still made me overjoyed. I wrote her many letters, telling her that I would go to find her, but she never responded to me. "Xiao Wen, the list hasn't been officially announced yet. Why don't you go home and talk to Director Liu again?" After the leave application was approved, I quickly booked a train ticket. The night before departure, Ran Shumian hugged my legs and begged me not to leave. The disgust in my heart was on the verge of erupting. And I just buried myself in packing my luggage. "You can't stop me. I'm going to find Wenmei." Ran Shumian was no longer the gentle and beautiful woman she used to be. She shouted at me hysterically, "What about me? You said you would marry me. Everyone knows we slept together. You have to marry me." I couldn't stand listening to these words anymore. I pushed her away and rushed into Wenmei's bedroom. There was something I had to take with me. I found the jade bracelet from our engagement, wrapped it tightly, and put it in the pocket close to my chest. But as soon as I turned around, a sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen. Ran Shumian stood in front of me, smiling creepily. "You really want to leave? Then go ahead, leave now." As soon as she finished speaking, countless sharp pains came from all over my body. In the last moment before I lost consciousness, there was only one question in my mind. If I had married Wenmei properly in the first place, would my life have been very happy? Story 2. After my rebirth, the first thing I did was to cancel my engagement with Pei Yan. I changed my college application choices and no longer aimed to attend the university he was studying at. In my past life, I lived solely for him, yet, I never knew that he could never let go of his first love. When he was in the late stages of stomach cancer, his only wish was to be truly married to his first love. So, in this life, I will grant him that wish. Just before the deadline to submit university applications, I changed my top choice to Southern Province University. Not only did I remove the originally preferred Capital City University from my top choice, but I also deleted all schools located in the capital city. My class teacher looked at me in surprise. "Nan Shuang, wasn't Capital City University your top choice?" I shook my head. Capital City University was never really my top choice. It was only because Pei Yan studied there. Wherever he was, that was where I wanted to be, to follow him. I had targeted Capital City University since my first year of high school. I worked hard for him and even applied to almost every college in the capital city to ensure I could stay close. But now, I no longer wanted to go. I submitted my application in the final minutes and smiled at my teacher. Teacher Lee, it's too cold in the north, I prefer warmer cities. She patted my shoulder. Southern University is also a good choice. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Grandpa Pei. Little Shuang, where are you? Ah Yen is about to have a holiday and he's asking if there's anything you want. He can bring it back from the capital city for you. I answered, no need, Grandpa. Yes, Pei Yen would also be on holiday soon. In my previous life, right after I was admitted to Capital University, Grandpa Pei couldn't wait to throw a party and announce to everyone our engagement. Pei Yen and I were engaged from an early age, after my parents died. I was raised by my grandfather. When he was seriously ill at the age of 10, he sought out his old army buddy, who was Grandpa Pei. On his deathbed, he entrusted me to the Pei family and then passed away. They had arranged our marriage when they were comrades in arms. Thus, outsiders often said that I was a child bride raised by the Pei family. Because of this engagement, I closely followed in Pei Yan's footsteps, but I never knew that this was never what he wanted. In my previous life, right after graduating from university, I married Pei Yan and soon had a child. Meanwhile, Pei Yan continued his studies, eventually becoming a professor at the university. I was forced into the role of a housewife, spending my days taking care of the home and teaching our child. Many people thought that I, a woman without a career, was not a match for the highly educated and refined Professor Pei. Even when our son faced problems, he would only consult Pei Yan. He always said, Dad, you're so brilliant, how could you marry someone as dumb as Mom? Pei Yan never told him that I also graduated from Capital University. He would only say, your mother gave up her career for you. My son would just sneer, I don't need her. She hasn't contributed anything to our family. At that time, I thought it was just childish talk and turned around to cook and do laundry for them. But as my son grew older, he relied on Pei Yan even more. He always thought I was foolish and not presentable. He would only invite Pei Yan to parent-teacher meetings, and everyone envied him for having a professor as a father. For school family activities, he would only want Pei Yan to attend, even preferring Pei Yan's assistant to fill the role of the mother. I once asked him why he was unwilling for others to meet his mother. The disdain in his eyes hurt me. You're so foolish. I'm afraid you'll hold us back and make my classmates laugh at me. That time I was very angry, and I rummaged through old boxes to find my dusty diploma to show him. Pei Ziyu, look carefully. Your mother also graduated from Capital University. Mom also graduated from Kyoto University. She's not worthless. He was frightened by my hysterical demeanor and kept his distance. Mom, you're so scary. As soon as Pei Yan returned home, he saw our mother and son confrontation. He took our son back to his room and then came over to comfort me, gently patting my back. Nanchuang, he's just a child. Why are you picking a fight with a child? Yes, he is just a child. Even the flesh that fell from my body after carrying him for 10 months degrades me to nothing. Outsiders even mock me for not being a match for Pei Yan. But Pei Yan, he never spoke a word for me. I never understood why he agreed to marry me and take responsibility for me, yet always seemed like he didn't love me. Until the year Pei Yan turned 50, everything became clear. He was diagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer, and I felt like the sky was falling. Pei Ziyu was still studying for his doctorate and had just started dating his girlfriend. Only I could take care of Pei Yan. I curled up on the hospital bed every day, never daring to fully fall asleep at night. I was afraid something might happen to him. On many nights, he cried like a child, holding my hand and saying, Nanchuang, it hurts so much, everywhere. Seeing him in pain, I was in pain too. When his condition was at its worst, Pei Yan was completely dependent on others for daily life, even needing help with his excretions. Pei Ziyu visited a few times, each time furrowing his brows and quickly leaving due to discomfort. Only I cleaned up after him without complaints, changing his clothes and bedding. The highly respected professor had become helpless, several times contemplating suicide, but I always stopped him. He told me more than once, Nanchuang, you are the only person in this world who truly cares for me. I thought that he still had me in his heart. However, after the hospital issued the 3rd critical illness notice, Pei Yan asked me to find someone. That person was his first love, He Chu Xue. But He Chu Xue had gone abroad early on, and they had lost contact. I went through Pei Yan's classmate records, contacted many of his classmates and teachers, and even found He Chu Xue's elementary school teacher's contact information. Finally, I learned from that teacher that she had returned to the country long ago and was now living alone. That was the first time I met He Chu Xue, who, despite being middle-aged, was still stylishly dressed, unlike me, who had spent half my life toiling for the family. Looking disheveled, she entered Pei Yan's hospital room, and they talked alone for a long time. When she left, it was clear that there was a new light in Pei Yan's eyes. Lying on the hospital bed, he called me and our son over and solemnly announced a decision. Nanshuang, I want to marry Chu Xue. It's my final wish. I stood there, too shocked to speak, looking at my son. His expression was normal, clearly. They had already made this decision in private. At that moment, I felt like the first half of my life was a joke. I firmly refused to divorce, but was scolded by my son. Mom, Dad was trapped by your marriage contract back then and couldn't pursue Auntie. Now he just wants to be a real husband to Auntie before he dies. Are you going to stop him? How can you be so selfish? I stared blankly at my son, who had grown mature, and suddenly his face seemed so unfamiliar. As a child, Pei Ziyu still looked a bit like me, but as he grew older, the more I resembled Pei Yan. He said that Pei Yan was trapped by that marriage arrangement, and am I not trapped in this damned marriage arrangement too? From the moment I moved into the Pei family, they told me that I was to marry Pei Yan in the future. My heart and eyes were filled only with him, unable to see anyone else. What finally overwhelmed me was Pei Ziyu's words. If you don't agree with Dad, don't blame me for not recognizing you as my mom. I didn't want this. I had toiled for the Pei family all my life, only to end up deserted by everyone. The moment I received the divorce certificate, I became very confused. My son and Chu Xue, pushing Pei Yan in his wheelchair, happily obtained their new marriage certificate. Pei Yan, over 50, held the marriage certificate close to his chest as if it were a treasured possession. I remembered the day we got our certificate. He didn't even smile for the photos, and after receiving the certificate, he just glanced at it and put it in the drawer. So, the difference between loving and not loving is really huge. Pei Yan even celebrated his wedding with great fanfare. That day, he looked remarkably spirited, showing no signs of illness. He finally fulfilled his dream of marrying his first love in front of everyone. Everyone praised their fairy tale love story, unconcerned about me, feeling I was unworthy. Even my son said, "Mom, look how happy Dad is now. This is the happiest I've seen him." The day after the wedding, Pei Yan once again was admitted to the ICU and did not make it through this time. Perhaps his lifelong wish fulfilled, he passed away peacefully. As his wife, Chu Xue inherited most of his estate. Right after Pei Yan's funeral, she went on a world tour, sharing her life and became known as the carefree grandma among netizens. Pei Ziyu is planning his marriage and asked me to pay for his wedding house. He said that I took half of Pei Yan's wealth during the divorce, and as a mother, it was my duty to buy him a house. I ignored him, as I had already donated the money to charity. I regret realizing all this so late, treating a piece of char siu as a treasure. Upon learning this, Pei Ziyu furiously vandalized my home. He harshly said, "You can forget about me taking care of you in your old age." He was wrong. I never expected him to take care of me. I poured out the remaining pills at home. In fact, after giving birth to Pei Ziyu, I suffered from postpartum depression. Professor Pei was busy and hardly ever home. Naturally, he never noticed my depression. Pei Ziyu also didn't know that I had already purchased my own burial plot. I clearly realized that I had lived a failed life. I just didn't expect that heaven would give me another chance to start over. This time, I will stay away from Pei Yan. Returning to the Pei household, Grandpa Pei greeted me with a warm smile. Perhaps in my past life, the only person who was kind to me was Grandpa Pei. He never treated me as an outsider, always treating me like his own granddaughter. When I was giving birth to Pei Ziyu, Pei Yan was busy with work and never visited the hospital. At that time, Grandpa Pei sensed something was wrong. He said if Pei Yan didn't treat me well, I could leave him at any time. But looking at my son sucking his thumb in my arms, I couldn't harden my heart to leave. He saw my reluctance and occasionally reprimanded Pei Yan. Pei Yan listened to him, started coming home more often, and showed more concern for me. But Grandpa Pei passed away early, and without his supervision, Pei Yan reverted to his old ways. So, while playing chess with Grandpa, I spoke up. "Grandpa, let's call off my marriage arrangement with Pei Yan." Grandpa Pei looked at me unexpectedly. "Xiao Shuang, weren't you always saying you'd only marry Pei Yan?" he asked. I smiled. I was naive as a child, but now that I've grown up, I've realized I don't like him. He adjusted his reading glasses and sighed. "Although I don't know what happened between you and Ian, since you say so, I'll listen to you." Finally, he added, "If you can't be my granddaughter-in-law, Then just be my granddaughter, okay? I nodded. I was well aware of Grandfather Pei's affection for me and knew that even if I wasn't with Pei Yan, I would still treat him like a real grandfather. After the divorce, I felt a great sense of relief. On the day Pei Yan returned, I was working a summer job at a milk tea shop. In my previous life, I had clung to him during this vacation, but now I wanted to avoid him as much as possible. Hearing a familiar voice ordering, I realized it was Pei Yan. I avoided his gaze and handed him his milk tea as if nothing was unusual. He chuckled and asked why I was pretending not to recognize him. He then pulled out a unicorn toy from behind him. I got this for you from Universal Studios. You like the Minions movie, right? It's a character from the film. In the past, I would have happily accepted it and been delighted all night, no matter what Pei Yan gave me. I used to adore it. Without even a glance, I said, Pei Yan, I don't like the Minions. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his handsome face. He must have remembered then. It was not me who liked the Minions. I had seen many Minions elements on Ichushiwa's social media in my previous life. Her keychain even had Minions on it. The gift he brought me must have been a convenient pick while he was out with her. Pei Yan took back the toy and pulled out a brooch and a pair of earrings from his pocket. The brooch was shaped like a rose, and the earrings were pink. He asked again. Do you like this brooch, or perhaps the earrings? Do you like any of them? I shook my head and dismissed him. I don't like any of them. Please don't bother me while I'm working. Pei Yan never really knew my preferences. He didn't know I didn't like roses or the color pink. I remember after our marriage, one of his students invited us to take a marriage quiz. He knew nothing about what I liked. He couldn't even guess, yet I remembered every one of his preferences. He failed the test, not even reaching the passing score, and he showed no remorse, instead blaming the student for making tricky questions. The outcome of our relationship had been clear in that score, yet I was completely oblivious. When I finished work, Pei Yan came to pick me up. He asked how I wanted to spend my birthday. This must have been another task assigned by his grandfather. I looked up and told him, Pei Yan, you don't have to spend it with me. A flash of confusion passed through his eyes. Nanchuang. What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange since I came back. I promised grandfather I'd spend your birthday with you. How about at the Yunqing Hotel? I remember you love their seafood. I casually agreed. After all, it didn't matter to me whether or not he spent my birthday with me. The admission letter arrived. Pei Yan was about to help me get it, but I squeezed past him first. He looked at me, puzzled. Nanchuang. Why won't you let me help you? Of course. It was because I was afraid he would see that I had changed my college preference. I didn't show it to grandfather either, and locked it away like a treasure in my suitcase. I set the date for the college registration in my planner. In a month and a half, I would be free from Pei Yan. Lately, I've felt that you've been acting strange. Are you avoiding me on purpose? Hearing his voice, I quickly turned off my phone. In the previous life, when I was clinging to him, he became impatient and pushed me away, saying, Gu Nanchuang, can you stop bothering me? If it weren't for grandfather's sake, I would have driven you out a long time ago. Later, when he found out I was sad, he bought me a small cake to appease me. Nanchuang, I didn't mean what I said, but I also need some personal space. Now that I've stopped seeking him out, he seems uncomfortable with it. Soon, it was my birthday. On the way to the hotel, Pei Yan took a phone call. He looked tense. Responding on the phone, don't worry, I'm here. After hanging up, he pulled the car over and turned to me. Nanchuang, something came up suddenly. You go ahead by taxi. I casually acknowledged and obediently got out of the car. At the hotel, I ordered the most expensive dishes. After all, grandfather Pei said tonight's bill was on Pei Yan. When we were halfway through the meal, Pei Yan finally arrived. He handed me a birthday gift. Slightly apologetic, sorry I'm late, happy birthday, Nanchuang. The gift was a diamond necklace. In my previous life, I treasured it, wearing it every day. I remember the first time I met Ichushiwa. She pointed to my necklace and said with a laugh, after all these years, why are you still wearing that necklace? I must say, I have good taste. Pei Yan almost chose a different one, but I strongly advised against it. I couldn't listen to her anymore. My mind fixated on one thought. The gift I treasured was also chosen with another woman. I accepted the gift without even looking at it and tossed it into my bag. Pei Yan was taken aback. Normally, I would have opened the gift immediately, but before he could inquire further, his phone vibrated again. He excused himself with an apology, and I remained indifferent. When he returned, even grandfather Pei couldn't stand it. You said you would accompany Nanchuang for her birthday, yet you left her on the road halfway. and kept her waiting while you took calls. No wonder Nanshuang says she doesn't want to marry you. Pei Yan was stunned. Nanshuang, did you really say that? I did not confirm or deny, simply stating I was tired and wanted to go home. I got up and left. Pei Yan chased after me, persistently grabbing my wrist. You've been acting weird since I came back. Are you upset that I've been neglecting you? I admit, I was wrong. I've been busy preparing for a competition. But I'll make it up to you when I'm free. Okay, I found it laughable. If I am not mistaken, both calls were from He Chushue. She stayed in the capital to work, harassed by a male colleague, and thus she called him. He didn't know that I heard everything clearly, seeing that I remained silent. Pei Yan softened his tone. Nanshuang, don't be so cold towards me. I know those were just your jokes. I don't take them seriously. I coldly pulled away from him. Pei Yan, what makes you think I will always like you? In my last life, he took advantage of my feelings for him, repeatedly leaving me and hurting me. It took me half a lifetime to realize that he didn't love me. Now that I'm letting go, why is he panicking? After that day, Pei Yan unexpectedly became the one who clung to me. Wherever I went, he followed, and he would even hang up the phone the moment it rang. Even the owner of the milk tea shop started gossiping about our relationship. I said, he's just someone unimportant. The owner just smiled and said nothing. One day, I had an argument with a parent. Her son had been caught on camera stealing another customer's milk tea. Stubbornly, the parent refused to admit it and even tried to throw a milk tea at me from the table. Luckily, Pei Yan was there to pick me up from work and quickly intervened, using his tall stature to shield me. If you lay a hand on her, I will call the police. The woman, seeing Pei Yan, shrank back and tried to sneak away with her son. Unexpectedly, the next moment, the boy suddenly ran over and pushed me hard. Caught off guard, I fell and hit my head sharply against the corner of the table. A sharp pain surged through my forehead, and I felt a warm liquid. Pei Yan immediately called for help to restrain the mother and son and called the police. Then he scooped me up and rushed me to the hospital. Throughout, his worried expression seemed genuinely sincere. I had once cherished the warmth of his embrace, even though he clearly didn't like me. Why was he always so kind to me, leading me to immerse myself in the illusion that he loved me too? Pei Yan began to care for me diligently. It was mandated by grandfather Pei, concerned about scarring. Pei Yan had the doctor prescribe the best ointment available. He even said, even if it scars, it doesn't matter, you'll still look good, it won't affect anything. I remember in my past life, when I gave birth to Pei Ziyu through a cesarean section, Pei Yan was too busy with work to come. Recovery from the cesarean was slow, and he had no time to care for me. After giving birth to Pei Ziyu, our time together dwindled even more. We hardly found time alone even when we managed to send our son to stay with grandfather Pei for a few days. But when he lifted my clothes and saw the scar on my stomach, he suddenly fell silent. Back then, there was a faint disgust in his eyes. I understood what that meant, buttoned up my clothes, and said I would sleep in the guest room. His disgust was never about the scar, it was about me with the scar. By the third day of Pei Yan taking care of me, He Chushue couldn't sit still anymore and traveled a long distance to find him. I had just had my bandages removed, and Pei Yan was changing my dressing. When I looked up, I saw He Chushue standing at the door, staring at him. No wonder she still looked so good even as she aged, confident, radiant, and with bright, expressive eyes when she was young. It's no wonder Pei Yan liked her so much. Seeing her, Pei Yan became flustered and almost knocked over the medicine bottle. He Chushue, jealous, hooked her arm around his shoulder and said, no wonder you haven't been answering my calls these past few days. You've been busy taking care of this little sister. He awkwardly responded, Chushue, don't misunderstand. Grandfather asked me to take care of her. Yeah, right. Everyone knows your family raised a child bride, and it's her, right? She does look pretty good. You two match well, she said sarcastically. Pei Yan took her outside, trying to explain that he only saw me as a sister. The countdown on my memo app went off. It reminded me that in 10 days, I would be completely free from Pei Yan. The registration day for Nan University and Jing University was the same, so Pei Yan never suspected anything. The day before registration, Pei Yan helped me pack. Nan Shuang, the climate in Jing City is dry, bring more moisturizing products, though you can also buy some after you arrive in Jing City. The cafeteria at Jing University is quite good, the area has many restaurants, and there are plenty of options if you like spicy food. Our school is quite large. Once you arrive, I'll accompany you to buy an electric scooter. so it will be more convenient for you to get around. Pei Yan chattered nonstop while organizing things. I already knew everything he talked about. Over the past 2 years, I had secretly visited his school to see him. I also knew that he liked to play basketball on Wednesday afternoons when he was off. There were always many girls cheering for him, and the line to bring him water was long. He enjoyed eating Chongqing noodles at the third cafeteria. I had tried them a few times with him, and they were so spicy that my nose ran. He also liked to spend 2 hours in the library every weekend. I secretly read every book he borrowed, even the obscure philosophical ones, forcing myself to digest them. Pei Yan didn't know that I had quietly noted everything about him. He thought I applied to Jing University because of our marriage arrangement or because of grandfather Pei's wishes. But in truth, I did it to be close to him. Now, listening to him, I felt somewhat distracted. He asked me, "Nanshuang, shall we head to Jing City together tomorrow?" I replied indifferently, "No need, stay a few more days with grandfather." Pei Yan insisted on taking me to the airport. All the way, he kept reminding me to be careful and to wait for him at Jing University. Sensing something, he asked nervously, "You will wait for me at Jing University, right?" It wasn't until he saw me pull out a plane ticket to Nam Province and firmly grasped my wrist that his face showed disbelief. "Nanshuang, didn't you apply for Jing University? Isn't that what you've always wanted?" I pulled away from his grip, my expression cold. "What does it matter to you where I go?" He was stunned, seemingly not expecting my cold response. "I don't know what I did to upset you, but you shouldn't gamble with your future over a grudge." "Pei Yan, are you really that important?" I almost laughed in frustration. "I'm not a study genius." He didn't know how hard I worked to get into Jing University, and it wasn't even the major I wanted. Previously, I was willing to do anything to follow him. Honestly, following him might have ruined my future. The moment I boarded the plane, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I could study the major I liked and live for myself. The plane landed, and my phone lit up with hundreds of missed calls and messages, all from Pei Yan. He demanded to know why I didn't consult him about calling off the engagement and why I changed my university preferences. I was puzzled. By calling off the engagement, he was free. Shouldn't he be happy? Now he could be with He Chuxiue without any guilt about our engagement or my feelings. Isn't that better? His messages were too bothersome, so I silently blocked him. I quickly adapted to life at Nan University, integrating into new circles and making many new friends. At an early semester mixer, my roommate and I performed a girl group dance. It was my first time dancing in front of people, and we had practiced for several days. I had always wanted to learn dance but had no time due to my relentless study schedule for Jing University. In my past life, I wanted to learn too, but Pei Yan had dismissed it as a waste of money. Later, I found out that He Chuxiue was a dancer. She had her own dance troupe, and during the first few years of our marriage, Pei Yan had been secretly funding her tours and never missed a performance. She cut off contact after she married someone else. He wasn't short of money, he just didn't want to waste it on me. The show received a lot of praise, and even a male student from the neighboring mechanical and electrical engineering college came on stage to present flowers. As I walked off the stage with the flowers, laughing with my roommate, I caught sight of a familiar figure not far away. Pei Yan stood in the shadows, his expression inscrutable. My roommates, sensing the situation, left, and Pei Yan finally spoke up. "Gu Nanshuang, why did you block me?" "Can't I block you because I find you annoying?" I didn't want to get entangled with him, but he stubbornly blocked my path. "You used to cling to me all the time, and I never complained." He stopped mid-sentence, realizing something, and his tone softened. "Nanshuang, it's my fault, isn't it? Are you punishing me? Don't flatter yourself." He stared intently at the flowers in my hands and said, "The person who just gave you flowers, is he an admirer, or a boyfriend?" "You only ever smiled like that at me." I couldn't help but frown. "Who he is doesn't concern you. I blocked you because I wanted you to stop bothering me. Why are you still coming to my school to find me? Shouldn't he be happily together with his beloved? I finally had a new life. Why did he still have to come and disturb me?" I left angrily, and after that, he somehow found out where my dorm was and waited downstairs for several days. I pretended not to see him when I went out, ignoring him, avoiding him. After being rebuffed by me, he had no choice but to return to Beijing University, since he still had his studies. It seems grandfather Pei found out, and Pei Yan never bothered me again. Peace lasted until my sophomore year, when I received a call from an unknown number. It was Pei Yan. The first time, I hung up and blocked him as soon as I heard his voice. but he kept calling from different numbers, and I couldn't take it anymore. I answered and yelled at him. After a while, I heard him say, "Nanchuang, how did we end up like this?" The sound of a glass breaking came through the phone. "Nanchuang, I don't know if you remember the girl who came to see me before, she's going abroad." My heart sank. In the past life, He Chushue also went abroad around this time. Back then, I was clueless, only remembering Pei Yan reeking of alcohol when he found me. He hugged me tightly, almost crushing me. That night, under the beautiful moonlight, he carefully lifted my face. It was the first time I was so close to him, close enough to see his eyelashes and the reflection of myself in his eyes. My heart raced as he leaned in closer and finally kissed my lips. My brain stopped working for a moment. All I could feel was the softness of his lips. I didn't know why he suddenly drank, or why he suddenly found me. That night, I was confused and spent the night with him. The next day, he woke up full of remorse, telling me he would take responsibility. Naively, I thought he loved me too. Now, he was still mumbling on the phone. "Nanchuang, why did it turn out like this? Why does everyone have to leave me behind?" I was tired of his nonsense and coldly said, "Because you don't deserve it. You had it coming." After saying that, I hung up the phone and blocked him again. Throughout the 4 years of university, I hadn't returned to the Pei family home for a long time. Grandfather Pei knew I was deliberately avoiding Pei Yan and didn't say much about it. After graduating, I pursued a master's degree and settled in the southern province, sending money to Grandfather Pei every month. Even though the Pei family was not short of money, I wanted to show my filial piety. After all, the Pei family had raised me for so many years. It was only when Grandfather Pei became seriously ill that I hurried back to the Pei household. Seeing Pei Yan again after so many years, I felt no turmoil in my heart. Grandfather Pei left the two of us alone in the hospital room. Seeing his aged and sickly face, I couldn't help but cry. No matter when, Grandfather Pei was always the one who truly cared for me. He never accepted the money I sent over the years, only telling me, "Grandpa just needs you to come and see me, Xiaoshuang, that's enough." I felt deeply ashamed. In my efforts to avoid Pei Yan, I had also avoided seeing Grandfather Pei. He held my hand tightly, his eyes clouded with reluctance to let go. "Xiaoshuang, my biggest regret," he said, "is not fulfilling my old comrade's wish to see you and Ian together, but I also regret forcing you both together. I can see that you are doing better now, so Grandpa hopes you will follow your heart and walk your own path." To Pei Yan, however, he said, "It's your fault that I lost such a wonderful granddaughter-in-law." After visiting Grandfather Pei, Pei Yan and I left together, and outside awaited He Chushue, who had been waiting for him for a long time. He specifically explained to me, "Chushue and I are together now." I smiled and replied, "Yeah, you two are a good match. It seems that in this new life, he finally got his wish to be with his true love, his moonlight, and to be with her." He even had a big fight with Grandfather Pei. So many people say that it was Pei Yan who aggravated his illness. Some relatives joked, "If only you two were together, the old man would surely live to 100. They were wrong. In a previous life, Pei Yan and I were married with children, and Grandfather Pei did not live much longer. Instead, he was always worried about our marriage, which took a toll on his health. Pei Yan is getting married now and sent me an invitation. I casually threw it in the trash, just like the diamond necklace from back then. Because of Grandfather's death, Pei Yan came back early to take over the company, abandoning his PhD studies. In this life, I chose to pursue a PhD and become a professor. At first, I was scared. I feared that my children would despise me as a useless homemaker. But then I thought, why should I prove my worth to others? So I quit my professor job and started trying new things, looking towards a broader world. I saw Pei Yan again when He Chushue was causing a fuss about their divorce. My friend was handling their divorce case and shared a few complaints with me. I heard their married life wasn't going well. He Chushue craved freedom, never took care of their child for even a day, and was always out having fun. Pei Yan, busy with work and caring for their child, was stretched thin and began to complain. Afterward, they argued nearly every day, with no peace at all. So it turned out just as the saying goes, the moonlight of youth turns to the mundane rice of daily life. The special mark becomes just another stain. I met a friend for dinner, and when I picked her up from work, I happened to run into the Pei couple. He looked terribly haggard, a shadow of his former spirited self. He Chushue was still stunningly beautiful, truly his pampered red rose. Pei Yan was holding their son's hand. She walked away without looking back. When Pei Yan saw me, his face was full of embarrassment. you caught us at a bad time. I ignored it and went to have dinner with a friend. On the way, my friend mentioned that the woman was adamant about getting a divorce, but the man refused to agree. Is this the magic of an unattainable love? Even when life had deteriorated to this point, he still held on. I treated it like a story and soon forgot about it. My lawyer friend told me that Pei Yan had asked for my contact information, wondering if I would be willing to give it to him. I naturally refused. Only then did she tell me that Pei Yan was in the late stages of stomach cancer and didn't have much longer to live. He just wanted to see me one last time. I felt so nauseated I wanted to vomit. I insisted that she not give him my contact information and that she need not mention anything about him to me again. Can I say one last thing? I heard that you were Pei's cherished unrequited love. The reason they were discussing divorce was because he found your photo in his bookcase. Now that he mentioned wanting to see you, she lost it completely, disregarding his illness and slapped him furiously. I suddenly regretted why I hadn't done the same. But this no longer had anything to do with me. Who his cherished love was, didn't matter anymore. Pei Yan was just a passerby in my life. Extra. Pei Yan, upon learning of his advanced stomach cancer, Pei Yan felt it was a release. The company was unstable, and Chu Shue demanded a high standard of living. He had ruined his stomach from all the entertaining he had to do for business cooperations. Chu Shue stood in front of his hospital bed, indifferently handing him a divorce agreement. You're dying anyway, just sign this quickly. I don't even want your assets, just don't let my household registration book read widowed. It's bad luck. Pei Yan wasn't surprised. He had long realized they were from different worlds and not suited for each other. He took the agreement and before signing, he had one request. Can you help me find Gunan Chuang's contact information? At this, Chu Shue erupted in rage, grabbing his collar hysterically. Pei Yan, are you still obsessed with your childhood sweetheart? If you liked her so much, why didn't you pursue her back then? Instead of deceiving me into marrying you, I gave up my dance career for you, bore you a son, and now have to look after you. How have I wronged you? Have you ever loved me? Pei Yan, facing her accusations and slaps, simply repeated one sentence, promise me, and I'll sign. Chu Shue slammed the door and left. Pei Yan lay in his hospital bed, staring at the pure white ceiling. Recalling the first time he met Gunan Chuang, he was 12 years old when his grandfather brought a timid girl before him. He told him that she would be part of the Pei family from then on. In the future, she would be his wife. As a young man full of pride, he couldn't accept this sudden fiancé, so whenever Gunan Chuang came looking for him, he showed impatience and kept her at a distance, but that didn't dampen her enthusiasm. She followed him around like a little tail, calling after him Brother Yan. On one hand, he disliked her, while on the other, he somewhat hoped she would get into Beijing University, but for some reason, he suddenly noticed that the clingy girl had become sensitive and distant. He felt as if he had lost something. Chu Shue, wanting to finalize the divorce smoothly, reluctantly sought out the lawyer who knew Gunan Chuang, but the lawyer's final response was a firm no. See, the person you can't stop thinking about is avoiding you like a plague. How disgusting are you, thinking of going back to her even when you're dying? Listening to Chu Shue's scorn, he finally signed the paper. His ex-wife left satisfied, and his son, who despised his dependency, wouldn't even glance at him. A warm sensation rose in his throat. He slowly closed his eyes and fell into complete darkness. He suddenly saw another world where he and Gunan Chuang were married. They were married. But why weren't they happy? That's when he saw the hurt in her eyes every time he neglected her. No wonder Nanchuang had stayed away from him all her life. The image of the first time he saw Nanchuang reappeared before him. She was dressed in a white gown, like a trembling gardenia, captivating his gaze. Amidst the chaos of blossoming flowers that threatens to bewilder the eye, he ultimately lost the very one he initially cherished. Story 2. After 10 years of marriage, Song Xiao achieved fame and success with my support, yet, he harbored a deep-seated hatred for me. After my death, he took over my family's company and married his childhood sweetheart. On their wedding day, Fu Yun, my former betrothed and now sworn enemy, detonated the wedding venue. Before the flames engulfed everything, Fu Yun said with a smile, "She's dead, and you all rise effortlessly. Where in the world does such good fortune come from?" When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to 10 years ago. On the very day I went with Song Xiao to break off my engagement with Fu Yun, he looked at me indifferently and asked, "Have you thought this through? Do you really want to break off our engagement for him?" Meng Wei, I never go back on my decisions, I replied. "Are you sure you want to break off our engagement over someone like him?" he asked with a familiar chill in his voice. I was still lost in the aftermath of the explosion. The overwhelming blaze seemed almost painful, even to my soul suspended in midair. Fu Yun, holding a gun amidst the flames, pulled the trigger. Seeing Song Zhao's mixture of shock and anger, he smiled and said, "She's died to clear the path for your rise. Such good fortune doesn't come easily." At that moment, the invisible shackles on me suddenly dissipated. Suddenly, my mind was flooded with new insights. It turned out that in my past life, I was the evil supporting character in a twisted redemption story. I had preyed on Song Zhao, who was then impoverished, using his mother's medical expenses to coerce him into accepting my financial help and dating me. Song Zhao believed I had humiliated him with money and harbored resentment towards me for many years. After our marriage, he conspired with others to take over my family's company and carried on an affair with his childhood sweetheart. Eventually, he drove me mad, had me committed to a psychiatric hospital, and watched me die from a fall. Then he transformed himself into a newly wealthy man and married his childhood love. Finally, I understood. Fu Yun and I were childhood friends, inseparable from a young age. Yet, in my past life, once Song Zhao appeared, I fell for him as if I had lost my senses. Regaining my composure, I looked around. I saw the varied expressions of the parents on both sides and Fu Yun sitting on the sofa, his expression cold, looking up slightly at me. Suddenly, I remembered, in my past life, today was the day I had irreparably broken with Fu Yun. The Meng and Fu families were old friends, and today was supposed to be a routine family gathering. Yet, I arrived late and brought Song Zhao with me. I immediately demanded to break the engagement with Fu Yun. "I've never liked you, and now I have a boyfriend. So, you've come to break off our engagement over him." Fu Yun adjusted his glasses. His gaze fell on Song Zhao beside me, filled with undisguised contempt. Song Zhao straightened his back, retorting, "What's there to be proud of? You're just a bit better born than me." "A bit better?" Fu Yun curled his lip, a mocking smile appearing. "You better understand, if Meng Wei hadn't brought you here, you wouldn't even have the standing to speak in front of me." This statement deeply wounded Song Zhao's fragile pride. In my past life, I saw his eyes redden with humiliation, and it pained me deeply. I immediately stood in front of him and lashed out at Fu Yun, calling him delusional, pestering endlessly. "Don't think I don't know. That high school boy who wrote me love letters mysteriously got hit by a car and broke his leg. You did that, didn't you, Fu Yun? People like you disgust me even with an extra glance, apart from being born into a good family. What else do you have that compares to Song Zhao?" I hurled many harsh words, but Fu Yun didn't retort a single one. He sat there silently, as if he had turned into a frozen statue. After a long time, he adjusted his glasses and calmly said, "Fine, I agree to call off the engagement." Song Zhao turned around coldly. "Miss Meng, did you bring me here just to have me humiliated?" I clenched my hands tightly, pulling my thoughts from the chaos of having just been reborn. Hearing his words, I suddenly laughed. Humiliation? Fu Yun was merely stating the facts. "You're someone to be trifled with at best. Do you really think you're worth his effort? You're overestimating yourself." Song Zhao. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire living room fell into sudden silence. Everyone stared at me in astonishment. From a couch 2 steps away, Fu Yun suddenly looked up. Behind his glasses were eyes fragile and clear like glass, showing a hint of unmasked surprise. "What did you say?" Song Zhao's expression became extremely awkward. I said, "You don't think you compare to my fiancé, do you? He always neglects me when doing business. I was merely using you to provoke him." I let go of his hand and stepped aside, as if avoiding something dirty. I issued an eviction order. "Now, you can leave." Song Zhao looked at me incredulously, but the butler, having recovered, escorted him out. Before leaving, he threw down harsh words. "Meng Wei, I'm not someone you can summon or dismiss at will. Next time, even if you kneel and beg me, I won't reconcile with you." He's so confident, it makes me want to cry, but right now, I'm too preoccupied to think about Song Zhao. I quickly run to Fu Yun's side and crouch down. In my previous life, I only found out long after calling off the engagement that Fu Yun had been hospitalized that very night. He had been sitting on the couch all evening because his stomach ailment flared up while he was on a business trip abroad. Despite desperately wanting to see me, he had endured the pain and rushed back. Yet, the first thing I did upon seeing him was to demand a breakup. I truly deserve to die. Our eyes met, and a flicker of realization crossed Fu Yun's eyes. He mocked with a laugh, "Using me to anger your boyfriend again. I couldn't blame Fu Yun for overthinking. In my past life, I indeed used him to provoke Song Xiao, trying to prove that he cared about me. Now, all I could do was soften my voice and feign ignorance. What boyfriend? Yun, you're my only fiancé. He looked down at me. I'm not feeling well. Can you accompany me to the hospital first? Fu Yun suddenly frowned. Where does it hurt? Period pain again. Without thinking, I replied, yes, period pain. He glanced at me. Today isn't supposed to be your menstrual cycle, due to Song Xiao. We had actually been in a cold war for a long time. I didn't expect him to still remember my menstrual cycle. My heart filled with a sudden surge of bitter emotion. It just came early. I gingerly grabbed his sleeve and gave it a shake. I need to go get a painkiller shot. Will you come with me, please? Fu Yun seemed lost in thought and remained silent for a moment before calmly replying, okay. As we got into the car, I instructed the driver to come over. Insisting that Fu Yun should not drive, he didn't object and just sat next to me in the back seat, albeit with a noticeable distance between us. I asked in a low voice, Yun, are you mad at me? He slightly curved his lips in a self-mocking smile and said, how dare I? Those 4 words overwhelmed me with a flood of guilt. In my past life, controlled by the plot, my parents couldn't persuade me, and I ended up marrying Song Xiao, using my family's assets to tirelessly support his company. Since Fu Yun was always competing with Song Xiao and taking his projects, I saw him as my sworn enemy. During those 10 years, the few times I met him were always filled with cold words. I never showed him any kindness. Yun, sniffling, I suddenly broke the silence. It's been 2 months. Did you miss me? Fu Yun glanced at me but said nothing, feeling a bit awkward. I tried to make conversation. You didn't bring me any gifts this time. Last time I did. You said my stuff was dirty and threw it away. He spoke coldly and then turned his head away, closing his eyes as if he was done talking to me. The last time Fu Yun returned from abroad, he brought me a whole box of rubies. When he handed it to me, he casually remarked, take these to make something small. Stop hanging around with low-class stuff. Both the rubies and Fu Yun's words had hurt Song Xiao's pride, so, to appease Song Xiao, I had immediately thrown the box of rubies back at him. I don't care for your dirty stuff. Thinking about it, I closed my eyes in despair, cursing the ridiculousness of the original plot in my mind, which seemed like it could only have been written by someone with a decade-long brain clot. In reality, I could only slowly try to close the distance between us. Moving closer to Fu Yun, I turned towards him, pressed close, my chin resting on his shoulder, and whispered, actually, Fu Yun, there's something I need to tell you. My warm breath brushed against the small hairs at his ear. Suddenly, Fu Yun opened his eyes, grabbed me by the back of my neck, and moved me aside. Whatever act you're putting on with that Song Xiao today, I'm not going to listen, so save your energy. He frowned slightly, paused, and then added, also, if you're not feeling well, don't move around too much. Even as Fu Yun scolded me with a stern face, I noticed his ears and neck had flushed red, and he adjusted his sitting position awkwardly. Fu Yun, I tentatively called out to him, you wouldn't, just sit properly. He lowered his eyelashes, concealing the turbulent desires in his eyes, his voice slightly hoarse, you don't need to worry about me. The car stopped in front of the hospital. The icy and tense atmosphere between Fu Yun and me has significantly relaxed. I thought about how he was suffering from severe stomach pain, and I used the excuse to ask him to support me, taking his arm in the process. Suddenly, an angry yet sweet female voice interrupted, Meng Wei. I turned around to see Su Wan, Song Jiao's childhood friend, rushing up to me, glaring furiously. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Intentionally causing someone to cut off Aunt Song's medicine, just to force Song Xiao to bow to you. Her gaze shifted past me, and suddenly her eyes reddened. You once said that if I disappeared, you would convince that senior oncologist to come out of retirement to treat Aunt Song. Are you going back on your word now? Wan. Song Xiao quickly stepped forward from behind me, pulling Su Wan to his side to protect her. Then, with furrowed brows and a lowered voice, he said, Meng Wei, it's all my fault. I won't be angry about what you did to me today. Please don't make it difficult for Wan and my mom. From now on, I will obediently listen to you. I suddenly realized something. In my previous life, the specialist who treated Song Jiao's mother was someone I was able to contact through the Fu family. It's not. Before I could speak further, suddenly, there was a gap in my arm. Fu Yun withdrew his arm from mine, lowered his eyes, and let out a mocking laugh. His eyes carried a clear understanding and a bone-chilling coldness. So that's why you suddenly asked me to bring you to the hospital, Meng Wei. Is this what you wanted to tell me? Fu Yun's expression, which seemed cold and sharp yet as fragile as shattered glass, was all too familiar to me. In my past life, every time I confronted him for the sake of Song Xiao, he would look at me like this. Back then, bound by the original plot, I was wholeheartedly devoted to Song Xiao. I just found Fu Yun's pretentious attitude annoying. Now, however, it pained me, and I instinctively retorted, no, but he no longer looked at me. His gaze coldly turned to Song Xiao. Since you look down on me, show some real skill, even to treat your own mother. You still involve my fiancé in this act. Aren't you ashamed? Song Xiao clenched his teeth, a hint of humiliation flashing in his eyes. Fu, don't think too highly of yourself. He clenched his fists and said coldly, someday, you will pay for what you said today. Fu Yun ignored him and walked away without looking back. I was about to follow him but was grabbed by Song Xiao. Meng Wei. His eyes were downcast as he looked at me, his voice hoarse. Meng Wei, it's all my fault, don't be angry. As his chilling fingers grasped my wrist, memories of my past life flooded back, and I felt as if a cold, venomous snake was coiling around me. Don't touch me, it's disgusting. Caught off guard, I shook him off, leaving Song Xiao somewhat stunned, clearly in disbelief. After all, in the past, no matter how angry I was, as long as he showed a slight concession, I would relent without limits. Meng Wei, he tried to say something else, but I forcefully interrupted him. Since you always feel that me spending money is an insult to you, transfer the 600,000 yuan for your mother's treatment to my card within 3 days. Let's see just how principled you really are. Wearing high heels, I ran all the way and finally caught up with Fu Yun at the hospital entrance. Fu Yun, I was panting as I grabbed his sleeve, but before I could speak, he turned his head. Meng Wei, there is indeed some old affection between you and me, he said coldly, but that doesn't mean you can take advantage of that, expecting me to endlessly yield for your boyfriend. After speaking, he tried to pull his sleeve away, but I grabbed it tightly. It has nothing to do with him. Alright, I admit it, I didn't come to the hospital because of menstrual pain, I came because I wanted to bring you here. Your stomach problem flared up again, didn't it? Fu Yun, don't think I don't know. You don't eat properly when you're out dealing with business. He looked at me somewhat astonished, his gaze slowly sweeping across my face, as if trying to discern the truth in my words. Seeing his expression soften slightly, I quickly pressed on, dragging him into the examination room. The doctor, holding his medical report with furrowed brows, said, you need to pay special attention to your diet with chronic gastritis, especially when you're feeling unwell. Don't force yourself and make sure to come to the hospital promptly. Let's start within 4 for a couple of days. The sunlight streamed through the window, filling the room completely. When only Fu Yun and I were left in the ward, the air suddenly grew quiet. I ordered some porridge via delivery, and after it arrived, I cooled it with a spoon and fed him. Fu Yun, with his eyelashes lowered, seemed lost in thought. The doctor said you should eat something, otherwise it will be uncomfortable during the 4. At my reminder, he finally looked up at me, his eyes, touched by the sunlight, reflected shimmering waves of light. Okay, he responded softly, finally willing to open his mouth. After he had half a bowl of porridge, Fu Yun gestured for me to put the bowl down. Phone. I handed over my phone, puzzled, and watched as he entered a series of numbers. What's this? Director Fong's number. The tumor specialist you've been eager to consult. Suddenly, I lifted my head, noting Fu Yun's pale face and the faint bitter smile at the corner of his mouth. Then it hit me. Even now, he thought I had an ulterior motive. By bringing you to the hospital, I'm giving you what you wanted, so I don't owe you anything. I don't want you to bring up today's incident next time you come asking for a favor on his behalf, saying that just watching me eat porridge made you sick. Meng Wei, I'm human too. The sunlight slanted across his face, spreading a rare fragility across his stern features. A sudden tightness gripped my chest, leaving me at a loss for words. I remembered the incident Fu Yun mentioned 3 months ago, when Song Jiao's studio was trying to secure a project. Fu Yun was the decision-maker on the client's side, so I went to him, cooked him dinner, and even brought gifts. While Fu Yun was in a good mood, I asked him, could you loosen up a bit and let Song Jiao's team handle the project? The smile on Fu Yun's face faded almost instantly. He put down his chopsticks and looked at me. So, you came to see me today just for your boyfriend. Song Xiao really is capable. I tried to argue, but he interrupted me with his stern voice. A capable person wouldn't need to rely on you to secure a project through back doors. You can go now. I've already reviewed the proposal and made my decision. He won't be chosen. Fu Yun stood up, pulled back his chair, and dismissed me. I was so angry that I lost my reason, pointing at his nose and yelling, "If it weren't for Song Xiao, I wouldn't even want to see you. Just seeing you eat the food I made makes me sick." In my blurred vision, suddenly a hand reached out, wiping the moisture from the corner of my eye. It was only then that I realized I had been crying. Fu Yun withdrew his hand and said indifferently, "Don't feel wronged. After today, I won't bother you anymore. We're even now, Meng Wei." It was normal for him not to trust me since I had a history. While convincing myself in my heart, I fought back the tears and looked at Fu Yun seriously. "I'm sorry." He paused, slightly taken aback. "Love can't be forced. No need to apologize. Once we leave the hospital today, I will explain everything to your uncle and aunt, and we'll call off." Before he could finish, my sudden kiss interrupted him. Fu Yun's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at me. I awkwardly rubbed my lips against his for a moment before pulling back slightly, gasping lightly as I clutched his collar. "No, don't talk about calling off the engagement." I steadied myself and continued, "Fu Yun, whether you believe me or not, the things that happened with Song Xiao before weren't my intention. I brought you to the hospital only because I saw you looked unwell and I was worried about your health." He looked down at me, his emotions swirling behind his long lashes, making them indecipherable. "Is this another one of your new lines?" I suppressed the bitterness in my heart. "We've known each other as long as I've been alive, so you can't just not believe in me. If you don't believe me, I'll kiss you again." As I said this, I moved closer again. But Fu Yun stopped me by pressing his forehead against mine, halting me just in time. His breath was close, his voice husky. "Meng Wei, do you realize what you're doing?" I responded, "I know. I'm doing what we did when we were 18. That statement was like a fuse, igniting all our senses in an instant. On the night of the college entrance exam completion, my family held a celebration dinner for me. I drank a few glasses of champagne and, feeling tipsy, pulled Fu Yun into my room. I asked him, "What does kissing feel like?" He quietly looked at me. "Meng Wei, you're drunk." I was slightly upset. "Don't change the subject. If you don't tell me, I'll go find someone else." Before I could finish, Fu Yun suddenly grasped my chin and pressed his lips against mine. A faint scent of lemongrass emanated from him, a gift I had given him for his birthday this year. Both his lips and the fingertips against my neck were scorching. My head was spinning, and soon all I could manage was to clutch at his shirt, overwhelmed by the intense heat that followed. Fu Yun's voice carried a deep, surging desire. "This is what kissing feels like. Do you want to go deeper, Meng Wei?" Back then, we were so close, so intimate. I always thought that after graduating from college, I would marry Fu Yun, but upon entering school, from the moment I saw Song Xiao, I was inexplicably drawn into the whirlpool of the original plot. The needle for the forehead shifted, soaking a large patch of tape with blood. He glanced at me. "No need to apologize." Then, "Do you believe me now?" "It depends on your actions." Although he said that, his tone had already softened somewhat. As the month was drawing to a close, Fu Yun went to a neighboring city for business. I returned to school for classes, but didn't forget to send him messages whenever I found a moment. I was determined to prove to him that he was the only one in my heart. Fu Yun's birthday was approaching, and that afternoon, I planned to go to the mall to pick out a gift for him. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar figure from afar. It was Song Xiao. He hadn't contacted me since our last heavy conversation at the hospital. I was quite relieved at first, but now, when he should have been busy at the studio, he was entering a garden restaurant with a young man. My heart tightened instantly, and I hurried forward a few steps. As I entered, the man just happened to look up. It was like a bolt of lightning struck me, and I froze on the spot. Wasn't this person Xue Kai, who in my past life had collaborated with Song Xiao to bring Fu Yun and the Meng family to ruin? I stealthily followed them and hid behind some greenery, just in time to overhear their conversation. "Fu Yun has already gone to Haicheng. It seems he hasn't noticed anything wrong with that project." Song Xiao sneered coldly, his voice chilling. "I want more than just his company. I want his life." In my past life, I often found it odd. Fu Yun, born into the Fu family, was the most outstanding child of his generation. He earned an MBA from the most prestigious business school at the age of 20 and then returned home to take over the family business. Such a Fu Yun, why did he repeatedly lose to Song Xiao, eventually even losing most of his family's company to him? Was it just because he was the male lead, or did he possess some special information? What was this Haicheng project they mentioned? Countless questions circled in my mind. I really wanted to ask Fu Yun, but I feared that confronting Song Xiao prematurely might accelerate the development of the original plot and push Fu Yun towards a predetermined fate. After much thought, I decided to start with Song Xiao and gather some intelligence to prevent Fu Yun from falling into danger under the influence of the original storyline. After returning home, I asked the housekeeper to stew some soup, then took it to the hospital. Sure enough, I ran into Song Xiao in the hospital room. He glanced at me coldly and remained silent. I approached him with a resigned air, tugging at his sleeve. I tried to recall the tone of arrogance and weakness I used before. "You're not still mad at me, are you? I'm really upset too. You promised me you wouldn't have any more contact with Su Wan." Yet the moment I arrived at the hospital, there she was, yelling at me. What does she think she is? A flash of disgust crossed Song Jiao's eyes, but he concealed it well. "I've already asked her to leave," he said indifferently. "She came that day because she was worried about my mother's health. It won't happen again, that's for the best. Don't forget I'm your girlfriend," I said. "I've asked Fu Yun these past few days, and he said he would help get that expert to come out of retirement to perform the surgery on Auntie, but it will take some time. He's recently been thinking about investing in a project, but there's been a problem." Song Jiao's Adam's apple bobbed, and he suddenly turned to look at me. "What problem?" I pretended to try hard to remember. "It seems like, could it have something to do with the suburbs of Haicheng?" The next whole day, Song Jiao's attitude towards me warmed up considerably. He kept indirectly probing, trying to find out if Fu Yun knew anything, pretending that I wanted to reconcile with him. I finally got invited to a dinner with Shui Kai and others. Before leaving, I felt inexplicably guilty, so I called Fu Yun to inform him, but his phone was off. After some thought, I decided I couldn't miss this opportunity. In the private room with excellent confidentiality, Shui Kai raised his glass to me. "Miss Meng, I intend to invest in Song Jiao's studio. My name is Shui Kai. Perhaps in the future, we might even collaborate." I remembered that in my previous life, it was he who helped Song Xiao ruin most of the Fu family and annex my family's assets. I could only suppress my disgust and exchange pleasantries with him. After a few rounds of drinks, he seemingly casually asked, "I heard that the Meng family and the Fu family are old friends. And Miss Meng was even engaged to the current head of the Fu family, Fu Yun." "What engagement?" "That was just the adults talking nonsense. He always makes things difficult for Xiao. I hate him to death." I looked at Song Xiao. From childhood, there has only been one person I liked, and that's Xiao. If it weren't for Xiao, I wouldn't bear with the disgust to deal with him. While saying these things, my mind was filled with the faces of Song Xiao and Shui Kai. The displayed hatred was too real and deep, making everyone in the private room burst into laughter. Miss Meng truly has a discerning eye, able to see through the true face of a hypocrite like Fu Yun. Shui Kai leaned closer with a smile. "Then, could you tell me what he is actually doing in Haicheng?" Feeling drunk, I stood up. "Excuse me, I feel unwell, I need to go to the restroom." I staggered to the door of the private room in my high heels and pulled it open. A gust of cold air mixed with a faint scent of lemongrass brushed past. The light spread a thin layer over the familiar handsome face in front of me. I shivered, suddenly sobering up. Fu Yun stood at the door with an expressionless face, and upon seeing me, he slightly curled his lips. Wei, so this is the situation." The corridor was bathed in a warm yellow light. It fell on Fu Yun's face, yet it felt chilling to the bone. He heard everything, in the mix of smells. I suddenly pulled out a thread of messy thoughts. The surge of drunkenness instantly dissipated, my fingers trembling on the doorknob. A sense of foreboding overwhelmed me, and I instinctively called out, "Yun, better not call me that, lest you disgust yourself again." He swept a disappointed and chilling gaze over me, then his gaze moved past my shoulder to Song Xiao and Shui Kai behind me. "Wanted to know what I was doing in Haicheng? Why not dare to ask me directly?" He chuckled lightly, his voice gaining a decisively sharper edge. "Think that planting a few spies in the company can affect my judgment? Your methods are as laughable as you are." Standing tall, his gaze toward those people was condescendingly obvious. "Clowns." With that, he turned and left. In the private room, Song Jiao's expression darkened, and he suddenly flipped over a plate. "What's there to be proud of? You think this is all I'm capable of? One day, I will watch him die right before my eyes." I really felt like slapping him twice, thinking about the original plot, yet I still dared not take it lightly. I could only manage a forced smile. "I'll go back with Fu Yun first, and ask him what exactly he has found out." After saying that, I grabbed my bag and left. I chased him all the way downstairs, just in time to see Fu Yun getting into his car. Fu Yun, I gasped for breath and quickly began, listen to me. I came here today to find out what kind of schemes Song Xiao and his people are plotting against you. Through the half-open car window, meeting Fu Yun's dead calm gaze, my voice suddenly faltered. He raised his hand, leisurely supporting his chin as if listening to some amusing joke. He even curved his lips slightly, chuckling softly. Are you going to say that this is all because you like me and are worried about my safety, afraid that I can't handle them alone? My anxiety and panic surged up like sea foam. I clenched my palm, forcing myself to calm down and explain seriously. Yes, I know you don't believe me, but Song Xiao is not as simple as you think. If his methods were only what he shows, I wouldn't. Mei Wei, Fu Yun suddenly interrupted me. Through the gradually closing car window, I saw his eyes, shattered yet still beautiful. You can't keep deceiving me endlessly just because I love you. After this, let's not contact each other anymore. After these words, the car window closed completely, the reflective film isolating everything. The black Rolls-Royce drove away without hesitation. I was left standing there alone. The cool night breeze blew over, suddenly giving me a shiver. In my past life, after I married Song Xiao, Fu Yun warned me more than once, saying he had ulterior motives and that I must be careful. No matter what he said, I didn't believe him. I even scoffed and mocked him. Are you just jealous of Xiao? Jealous that he came from an ordinary background, yet now stands in a higher position than you, a hypocrite full of lies. I won't believe a word you say. At that time, Fu Yun stood in front of me, impeccably dressed in a suit, his eyes full of pain. Coming to my senses, I had already gotten into the car and instructed the driver to head to Fu's house. However, Fu Yun did not return to the old house, nor to his own home. The car circled around most of the city, finally stopping under his company building. Looking up, I saw a light still on in the top floor office. Thinking of his sharp, resistant expression just before the car window closed, I suddenly felt a bit cowardly, so I went to a nearby convenience store, bought a can of beer, and drank it all at once to bolster my courage. Once the drunkenness slowly started to kick in, I entered the elevator and pressed the button. Floor 17, Fu Yun's office was on the 39th floor, highly private. But he never set barriers against me. When I pushed open the door, the large office was empty. From the tightly closed door of the adjoining restroom, the faint sound of water could be heard. Other than that, there was only the faint scent of lemongrass mixed with a slight smell of blood. My heart tightened, and countless scenes from my past life flashed through my mind, and without thinking, I pushed open the door of the restroom. It was just at the moment when I opened the door. In the restroom of the lounge, the sound of running water suddenly stopped. Fu Yun stepped out, drying his damp hair, but he froze when his eyes met mine. Wei, my gaze uncontrollably fell upon him. I've always known that Fu Yun was remarkably handsome, yet, most of the time, his expression was cold, creating a sense of distance. But now, with the air filled with mist, his usual stern facial features seemed slightly softened. Droplets of water trickled from his hair tips, gliding along his smooth muscle contours, disappearing at the edge of the towel wrapped around his waist. His usually concealed pale skin was fully exposed, and a small mole on his waist shone provocatively. Additionally, his left forearm was wrapped in several layers of wet bandages, faintly revealing a hint of blood. He was indeed injured. Get out. Perhaps my intense gaze was too apparent. Fu Yun closed his eyes and coldly rebuked, yet, his tone lacked any real deterrence, whether driven by alcohol or instinct. I blinked. Instead of leaving, I stepped further in and shut the door behind me. You're hurt? I approached him and asked. Fu Yun, what happened? Your wound has started bleeding again. It needs to be rebandaged. It's just a minor injury. Fu Yun responded indifferently. I can handle it myself. It's none of your concern. Pausing, he then added, Miss Meng, you shouldn't be here in my office, especially not when your boyfriend. I wrapped my arms around his neck, my kiss, heavy with the scent of alcohol, sealing his next words. Stop talking. None of what you say is what I want to hear, I murmured, somewhat unclearly. As our lips met, the temperature between us escalated rapidly. In a disarray of steps, we both fell onto the nearby bed, the towel unraveling amidst our entanglement. After a prolonged and deep kiss, I leaned on Fu Yun's shoulders. Gasping for breath, his eyes were filled with intense, dark desire, yet, he managed to speak with some difficulty. Is this because of him again? Of course, it's for myself. Alcohol and kissing muddled my thoughts, and without much consideration, the words slipped out. Isn't it normal to have some indescribable thoughts about one's fiancé after seeing him fresh out of the shower? My fingers, wet with droplets, unintentionally played with the mist-covered red points on his stark white skin. Pleased, I watched as Fu Yun's Adam's apple bobbed violently twice before he grasped my hand. Besides, since I was 18, I've been thinking about this. With you, Fu Yun, it can only be you. The air stilled for a moment, then, everything turned upside down. The entire world seemed to spin, leaving only the two of us. The remaining droplets quickly evaporated due to the intense heat. The ceiling lamp, like a small boat violently tossed in a storm, swayed just like I did. Soon, all that was left was the sound of our rapid breathing. Unexpectedly, my thoughts drifted back to when I was 18, to the night after the college entrance exams, when I got drunk and secretly kissed Fu Yun on the balcony. No matter how much I coaxed or teased, he would only agree to kiss me. Wei Wei, you are still young. His voice was close to my ear, his body temperature scorching as he continued to restrain himself. I must give you a chance to change your mind. Now, Fu Yun. I only managed to utter 2 words, startled by the hoarseness of my own voice. Fu Yun paused, his gaze slightly lowered, looking down at me. The dense, fog-like emotions in his eyes surged momentarily, then dissipated. Moments later, he lifted his hand and covered my eyes. There won't be a second chance to change your mind, Wei Wei. Outside the window, a heavy rain had started at some unknown time. Inside the lounge, the moist hot mist rose along the light. Fu Yun pressed on the most sensitive part of my lower back, varying between gentle and firm, his voice husky. Wei Wei, don't hide, feel me properly. Thinking of the wound on his arm, I worriedly tried to prop up my upper body to check, but a sudden increase in force made me swallow all my words. I told you, it's just a minor injury. Fu Yun's slender fingers twirled a strand of my sweat-dampened hair. His eyes, usually cold, seemed to crack open slightly, revealing the intense emotions buried deep within. There's plenty of time, Wei Wei, don't be so nervous. The fresh scent of lemongrass gradually mixed with the scent on my body, along with the smell of alcohol. At some moment, they blended, overflowing. At 4 in the morning, I dragged my weakened body onto the carpet, barely able to stand. Fu Yun, using his uninjured arm, hooked around my waist and pulled me back. You should rest now, Wei Wei. I tried to look back at him. But your wound really needs to be rebandaged. Also, how did you get hurt? Fu Yun suddenly fell silent. In the suffocating quiet, I suddenly realized something. You don't think I'm gathering information about you for Song Xiao, do you? He looked straight at me, obviously acknowledging it. I felt a bit sad and a bit angry. We've already been intimate. I've said it. I was afraid you were in danger. So I went to Song Xiao to find out their plans against you. Why won't you believe me? I have believed you. Fu Yun's voice was soft. Over these 2 years, I believed you many times, Wei Wei. Suddenly, it felt as if my throat was blocked. I blinked back slightly sore eyes, listening as he continued. But whether I believe you or not doesn't matter anymore. From now on, no matter how sweet your words, I won't let you go again. As for that Song Xiao, he's not as simple as you think, I blurted out. Seeing Fu Yun's slightly furrowed brow, I took a deep breath. If I said that in a past life, I died at his hand, would you believe me? Outside the window, the heavy rain pelted the glass, the dark night showing no hint of moonlight. In the ambiguous light of the room, the Fu Yun opposite me seemed to freeze entirely. A past life. Fu Yun, have you ever thought that we might actually be characters in a book? Hesitating for a moment, thinking of the terrifying power of the original plot, I decided to tell Fu Yun everything. I don't know if it was a dream or a real past life. In any case, from the moment Song Xiao appeared in my last life, it seemed like suddenly, I could only see him. By the time I finished recounting those 10 years from my past life, the rain outside the window had already stopped, and a pale golden glow was spreading across the sky. The final project cost my parents their lives and allowed Song Xiao to successfully take over all our family's assets. He said he hated me because he endured unimaginable humiliation by my side over those 10 years. After that, he used the excuse that the shock I suffered was too great and that I had lost my mind, and had me committed to a psychiatric hospital. At this point, my voice began to choke up, even though so much time had passed and everything had started over. The 6 months I spent in the psychiatric hospital still felt like a nightmare. Every day, I was restrained and forcibly injected with excessive doses of medication. My brain was muddled, barely having any lucid moments. I also had to endure the near-death agony of regular electric shocks. So later, when I finally came to my senses, I escaped from the ward and jumped off the hospital's rooftop. My voice trembled slightly as I was engulfed in Fu Yun's sudden embrace and warmth. His hands moved through my hair, pressing my head against his chest. That was just a dream. I won't let that happen. Yes, you won't. I closed my eyes in his arms. The scene of the wedding day with fireworks seemed to reappear before my eyes. So even if in the dream you couldn't overcome the power of the original plot and save me, you still sent him to hell at the moment of Song Zhao's greatest joy. The familiar scent of Fu Yun and the drowsiness from a sleepless night soon lulled me into a deep sleep. In the dream, it was as if I had returned to my previous life. During those 10 years with Fu Yun, whenever we met in public, I attacked him with the most venomous words, relentlessly trying to bring him down, yet, he still wore the lemongrass-scented perfume. While I was alive, I despised him intensely and never cared. It wasn't until I watched him being engulfed by the flames that I suddenly understood. Because that was Meng Wei at 18, before she ever met Song Xiao. It was the last gift Meng Wei gave to Fu Yun, 21. The first thing I did after waking up was to take Fu Yun to the hospital to have his wounds treated again. Keep it dry, and don't use this arm strenuously for the next 7 days, the doctor instructed sternly, then said, you can go now. As we got into the car, I turned to Fu Yun and asked, can you finally tell me how you got hurt? Under the dim light inside the car, he looked into my eyes and sighed softly. It was just a minor accident during a site inspection at the project. I suddenly bit my lip. Is it related to Song Xiao? Fu Yun's warm fingertips teased mine apart, soothing my lips gently. Don't worry, the only way he can hurt me is through you, so, you just need to stay away from him, and leave the rest to me. But I don't want it that way. I caught his slightly seductive fingers and said earnestly, Fu Yun, I've died once. In a sense, I'm even older than you now. Whatever you plan to do or how you plan to deal with Song Xiao, let me know and include me. Okay. He paused for a moment, then quietly agreed, okay, Meng Wei, I won't interfere with your decisions, but, try to stay away from Song Xiao, he advised. I nodded, then couldn't resist teasing him a bit. Are you afraid I'll be bewitched by Song Xiao again? Fu Yun nodded calmly. Yet a hint of unmasked vulnerability flashed behind his lowered eyelashes. He was scared. It turned out that Fu Yun, who took over the Fu family at the age of 16 and was known for his decisive actions, could feel fear too. I kept Fu Yun's face earnestly and said, Fu Yun, we've known each other since the day I was born. When I was a child, I was weak and often in the hospital. You visited me every day with flowers and comic books. When I had my first period at 14, it was you who bought me sanitary pads. After our first kiss at 18, I've been dreaming about you ever since. Without the original plot's brainwashing, I wouldn't spare Song Xiao a second glance. I've always loved you, only you. Those words were like the key that suddenly unlocked Pandora's box. In the soundproofed, enclosed space, Fu Yun abruptly pulled me closer by the back of my head and kissed me forcefully. The kiss was intense, causing a tingling pain on my lips, even numbing my tongue. My body went limp, overheated, as I sat on his lap, continuously slipping downwards, until I crumpled his neatly pressed suit shirt into a ball. I suddenly remembered the doctor's advice. Wait, your wound, you shouldn't strain it. Fu Yun, using his uninjured hand, scooped me back up and firmly seated me on his lap. Because of the slight exertion, the muscles in his thigh, encased in his tailored trousers, tensed up, feeling scorching to the touch. I wavered, instinctively bracing myself against his leg. Fu Yun let out a low groan, his voice raspy. It felt as if there was a fire burning hotter and hotter in front of my fingertips. My reason was instantly incinerated. My hands moved forward inch by inch, reaching for that blazing fire. At the same moment, Fu Yun's husky voice, filled with restrained desire, echoed in my ears. Then I'll leave it to you, Wei Wei. Show me the dreams you've had about me. After that day, Song Xiao didn't contact me for a long time. I went around the hospital only to find out that he had managed to get another oncologist out of retirement through someone else's help to perform surgery on his mother. That was probably his hero's halo. As graduation approached, I simply started an internship at our family's company ahead of schedule. Since the Meng family had long maintained cooperation with the Fu family, I naturally had more contact with Fu Yun. I planned to visit Song Zhao's studio later, sitting across from Fu Yun. I bit into my bagel and began, according to what happened in the previous timeline. By this time, you and I would have fallen out, and I would start using my family's resources to help Song Xiao build connections and snatch an important project from you. Fu Yun suddenly looked up at me. His emotions were clearly visible under his long eyelashes. I quickly added, I'm just going to probe and see what his current plans are. Wait for me to come home for dinner tonight. Song Zhao's studio wasn't far from the city center. Without my relentless support, He wouldn't have been able to afford this place initially. As I entered, I saw Suwon sitting at his desk. Song Xiao stood behind her, bending over in an extremely intimate posture, almost enveloping her completely. It was just like in my previous life. I had already noticed countless times the inappropriate closeness between him and Suwon, which Song Xiao always denied. We had argued about it many times, each more explosive than the last. When I became nearly hysterical, Song Xiao would just stand by, watching me with tired eyes. Later on, all of this became evidence of how I oppressed and humiliated him. Coming back to my senses from my memories, I spoke coldly. "What are you doing?" The two people in front of me seemed to suddenly freeze. A moment later, Song Xiao straightened up and smoothed out his slightly wrinkled clothes. He looked at me, but his words were directed at Suwon. "You go out first." Suwon glared at me unhappily and then got up and left. Now alone in the room, Song Xiao resumed his cold demeanor. "Weren't you following Fu Yun? What are you doing back here looking for me?" He still tried to manipulate me with his old tricks. Indeed, if it were Meng Wei controlled by the original plot, she would now lower her dignity to apologize, professing her love only for him. She would then do everything possible to help his studio, proving that she was the only one who could offer him certain things. I slightly lifted my chin. "Recently, there's a project at the family company that was supposed to collaborate with the Fu Corporation, but I thought of choosing you." Song Xiao suddenly looked up at me, his Adam's apple moving slightly. I curled the corner of my lips. "However, the project has a long duration and involves a huge amount of funds. I need to first make sure how much you can handle." That night, I combined the information from my past life with what I had learned and told Fu Yun. "I suspect that, because of my rebirth, the plot has progressed faster, and Song Xiao has already hooked up with Zhao Run, the newly appointed gang leader in Nanching. In my past life, he only met that person several years later, and with his current power, collaborating with such a person is akin to consorting with a tiger." Thinking this, I frowned slightly. Fu Yun, who had been looking over a contract, paused and looked up at me. "That's because Shui Kai can no longer provide him with help." I was startled. In the Haicheng project, they planted a mole in a subsidiary to steal accounts and create false impressions. Now Shui Kai and his men are already in prison. He flipped to the next page of the documents in his hand, his tone as calm as usual. "Song Zhao's company is just starting up. He's too weak and can only depend on others." I suddenly realized, "You orchestrated this." Fu Yun did not argue, evidently accepting my statement. I blinked and threw myself into his arms. Yun, you're incredible." He caught my wandering hand, suddenly adopting a serious expression. Wei Wei, don't get involved in what comes next." "Why?" "Because it's dangerous," he said, slightly furrowing his brow. "Song Zhao's identity is not as simple as you think. Otherwise, Zhao Run wouldn't have agreed so readily to collaborate with him." I was suddenly stunned. "You said that in my past life, I chose the most tragic way to perish together with them." Fu Yun's tone remained steady, yet it inexplicably carried a chilling undertone. "That must have been because I had no other choice left." That night, I dreamt again. I dreamt of my previous life, in the 6th year of my marriage to Song Xiao. At a certain evening banquet, I saw him standing closely with Zhao Run's daughter, Zhao Yi, in an intimate posture, and then, inexplicably, I went mad with jealousy. Losing all reason, I sent people to kidnap Zhao Yi, but ended up being taken away by Zhao Run's men instead. A cold dagger pressed against my neck, slowly tracing down along the contours of my body. I thought I would die there. In the end, Song Xiao, with an indifferent face, walked through the door and took me away from the gang. Opened the door for another woman who was elegantly dressed. As they both entered the building, I felt a pang of unease. The scene from my dream flashed before my eyes. Zhao Yi, in an intimate posture, and then, inexplicably, I went mad with jealousy. Losing all reason, I sent people to kidnap Zhao Yi, but ended up being taken away by Zhao Run's men instead. A cold dagger pressed against my neck, slowly tracing down along the contours of my body. I thought I would die there. In the end, Song Xiao, with an indifferent face, walked through the door and took me away from the gang. Opened the door for another woman who was elegantly dressed. As they both entered the building, I felt a pang of unease. The scene from my dream flashed before my eyes, intertwining with the reality in front of me, and a chill ran down my spine. Because of this, in my past life, I always believed that he was only superficially indifferent, but deep down, he still had feelings for me. But, in this dream, it was like a sudden change of scenes in a movie. I saw another room where Zhao Run with his scarred face, was sitting, along with the expressionless Fu Yun by his side. In front of them was a large screen, frozen on the image of a dagger pressed against my neck. Zhao Ren chuckled lightly. So, Mr. Fu, have you considered my proposal for collaboration? Fu Yun, with his beautiful eyes, looked at my tear-streaked face without any change in expression. A few seconds later, he shifted his gaze. I agree. Let Mei Wei leave safely. Zhao Ren smiled satisfiedly. Mr. Fu is a smart man. It's a pity, though. If you had agreed to become my son-in-law, we could have been family in the future. Fu Yun responded distantly. I am not so fortunate. After he stood up and left, Song Xiao and Zhao Yi pushed the door and entered. Zhao Yi sighed with a bit of regret. Dad, has Fu Yun agreed to cooperate with us? Zhao Ren nodded. Such poor taste, preferring that foolish Meng Wei over marrying me. She laughed and turned her head to look at Song Xiao. Brother, when will you divorce this fool and marry Sister Su Wan? I abruptly opened my eyes. It was dark around me, with only a sliver of moonlight seeping in through the window. The scenes from the dream still lingered in my mind, quickly connecting with other information I knew, revealing the hidden truths of my past life. Wei Wei. I barely moved when Fu Yun next to me pulled me into his embrace, holding me. He stayed quiet for a few seconds, then spoke with concern. You're trembling. I know now. I closed my eyes, inhaling his familiar, crisp scent. I know now, Yun, that Song Xiao is Zhao Ren's illegitimate son. Zhao Ren agreed to cooperate with him now because they have recognized each other as father and son. Fu Yun was completely indifferent to Song Xiao's real identity. He just held me tighter. What did you dream about? I wrapped my arms around his slim waist. My voice choked. I'm sorry, Fu Yun. I finally understood that in my past life, under the schemes of Song Xiao and the Zhao family, I became a hostage threatening Fu Yun. The Fu family's business was forced into disreputable dealings. So, in the end, Fu Yun chose to perish with everyone at that grand wedding. Thankfully, in this life, I've awakened from the original plot's constraints. There's still time. Once I calmed down, I recounted the scenes from the dream. Fu Yun's hands behind my back suddenly tightened slightly. His voice cold as ice. Zhao Yi, I understand. He opened the car door. Next, Fu Yun, dressed in a suit, stepped out with a faint smile on his lips. I don't know what he said, but Zhao Yi covered her mouth, laughing as she pulled something resembling a letter from her small bag and handed it to him. Then she got into the car and left. Fu Yun stood still, surveying his surroundings. When he passed by my car, he paused. I was certain he recognized me, yet he acted as if he saw nothing, calmly shifting his gaze and went upstairs. A profound sense of sorrow suddenly spread through my heart. So, was this how Fu Yun felt all those countless times he saw me with Song Xiao? I pushed open the car door, went upstairs, and found Fu Yun in his office. He looked up from behind his desk. Why didn't you knock? I replied sourly. Does Zhao Yi need to knock when she comes to see you? Fu Yun fell silent for a moment, then suddenly stood up and walked towards the lounge area. As he walked, he loosened his tie and unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt. Standing inside the lounge with his collar partly open, he looked at me and said, "Come here." I deliberately dragged my feet, slowly making my way over. Just as I entered the lounge, the door suddenly closed behind me, my back pressed against the cold, hard door panel. But what pressed against my chest was the burning warmth of Fu Yun's body. He gripped my shoulders, his moist kisses trailing from my lips to my ears. Then following the lines of my body, inch by inch downwards, Fu Yun knew me too well, including my reactions, the limits I could endure, what every tremble of my body meant. I felt like I was thrown high into the clouds, then suddenly dropped into an endless ocean. Fu Yun, I barely managed to call out his name, trembling, before being plunged back into the boundless ocean of bliss. In the end, before being completely engulfed by the waves, I heard his hoarse voice, heated with breath, close to my ear. Are you done checking? I still belong only to you. I turned Zhao Yi's letter to Fu Yun over several times. It turned out to be an invitation to her birthday party. As the main person in charge of the Meng's project in collaboration with the Zhao family, I also received one. That day will be dangerous. I'd prefer you didn't go. Fu Yun's clear, glass-like eyes looked into mine. But will you listen to me, Wei Wei? I shook my head honestly. No, then quickly added, because, under normal circumstances, we are currently cooperating smoothly. If I inexplicably don't attend the party, it might arouse their suspicions. This reason was sufficient. Even Fu Yun couldn't refute it. He stared at me for a while, then leaned in to kiss me again. Whatever happens, Wei Wei, remember. Your own safety is most important. Soon, it was the day of Zhao Yi's birthday party. The Mang's project was actually a collaboration with the government, so many influential people attended, and as one of the 3 cooperating parties, Song Xiao thus successfully made many connections. I watched with a cold eye as Su Wan followed behind him, sensing my gaze. She suddenly turned around and looked at me with a mix of triumph and provocation, then, as if to show off, she hooked her arm into Song Zhao's. Such trash, better keep it to yourself. Looking around the venue, among the guests who came here, I recognized quite a few familiar faces. These were the business partners that Song Xiao was supposed to meet several years later in his previous life. Was everything accelerated because Fu Yun took the initiative? Just as I was beginning to understand, today's party's protagonist, Zhao Yi, made her appearance. She was holding Zhao Run's arm with one hand, and on her other side stood Fu Yun, wearing a faint smile. Welcome everyone to my birthday party, she said with a beaming smile, her eyes briefly passing over mine with a touch of smugness. A waiter rolled out a massive 3-tiered cake. After cutting the cake, she and Fu Yun came down to mingle with the guests and quickly approached me. Miss Meng, I hope we will enjoy a pleasant collaboration on the upcoming projects. Zhao Yi smiled at me, then suddenly turned to ask Fu Yun. I heard you and Miss Mei were close before, even betrothed as children. That was just a family joke, not to be taken seriously, Fu Yun said, his gaze sweeping over me coolly before indifferently shifting away. Besides, Miss Meng already has someone in her heart. We have no relation now. Even though I knew he was acting, I still clenched my teeth in frustration. It took me a moment to scoff disdainfully. I should thank President Fu for finally letting me go. He left with Zhao Yi at his side, holding a glass of wine. I soon found Song Xiao near the garden-facing French windows. He was on the phone, and Su Wan, who had been with him, was nowhere in sight. I couldn't tell what the person on the other end was saying, but his expression gradually turned solemn. Outside the window, the first firework of the night burst into the dark sky, followed by countless more. These fireworks, meant to celebrate Zhao Yi's birthday, perfectly masked the sound of gunfire from a fierce battle at a gang's secret arms depot not far away. Recalling Fu Yun's earlier instructions, I discreetly moved back to a corner, getting ready to leave through the garden path. Suddenly, a bloodied figure burst through the main entrance. Boss, our deal has been discovered. A gunshot rang out, and a huge crystal chandelier crashed to the floor with a thunderous noise. The entire hall was plunged into darkness, descending into chaos. Fearing I'd be caught up in it, I hid quietly in the corner, watching as police officers who had infiltrated the party subdued Zhao Run's men. Wei Wei. Finally, Fu Yun's voice reached my ears. Taking advantage of the darkness, he came to my side and whispered, the Zhao family's influence has been entrenched for many years. They might have other moves to make. Let's get out of here first. I nodded, my tense heart gradually easing. However, just as we were avoiding the chaotic crowd and heading to the garden, the night breeze carried a mix of unknown floral scents, and I suddenly smelled a peculiar odor. It was like a premonition from a past life. My pupils dilated, and I instinctively tackled Fu Yun to the ground, rolling quickly to the side. The next second, bullets stirred up dust where we had just been. I staggered to my feet, only to find myself targeted by a dark gun muzzle. It's really you. Song Xiao held the gun, looking at me with almost hateful eyes. Why do you keep sabotaging my career and opportunities if you claim to like me? If you admired me, you should have been willing to give without expecting anything in return. But while you say you like me, you only look down on me with pity. From your high pedestal, Meng Wei, you truly disgust me. Even in another life, I was rendered speechless by Song Zhao's shameless words. So in the previous life, no matter how kind I was to him, pouring my heart and soul into helping him, he still saw it as an insult. He deeply believed that when I offered help, I shouldn't expect anything in return. Do I look like a sucker to you? His absurd logic infuriated me, and I couldn't help but say, we don't even know each other. I spent money to help you. You should be thanking me. If you feel humiliated, you could have thrown the money in my face and told me you could make it on your own without my dirty money, but you didn't. The truth is, even though you've secured Zhao Run's support, you still rely on working with my family to win the projects you want. Without my help, you're nothing. The more I spoke, the paler Song Zhao's face became, but he gritted his teeth and said, someone like you, born with a silver spoon, you just don't understand. It has nothing to do with background. Fu Yun suddenly chuckled, interrupting Song Xiao. Blaming others and shirking responsibility. even if you were born into our family. Nothing would change, just like now, you've acknowledged your own father, yet you remain someone who can only advance by trading on looks. His gaze was contemptuous and unmasked, yet it seemed he was prepared all along. The moment Song Xiao lost his reason and fired the gun, Fu Yun swiftly pushed me aside. More than one gunshot rang out, bullets tore through flesh, bursting into a smoky bloom of blood. Drops of warm blood splattered on my face. All I could see was an overwhelming red and his slowly closing eyes. Fu Yun, in the hospital room, the smell of disinfectant overwhelmed the scent of lemongrass on Fu Yun. I sat by his bed, teeth clenched. Are you insane? His eyelashes trembled, and he looked at me with a tender gaze. I'm sorry, Wei Wei. I just wanted to test something. After all our efforts to escape that irresistible force, I wanted to see if your fate from a previous life would repeat itself. That was why he deliberately provoked Song Xiao to shoot at him. In reality, the police officers stationed nearby had already noticed the commotion and followed. The moment Song Xiao fired, they too pulled their triggers, hitting his wrist and temple. If the original plot's influence was inescapable, Fu Yun would have certainly died under Song Xiao's gunfire. But now, because the gun was misaimed, he was only injured in the shoulder. But there were many other ways to verify this, wasn't there? Did it have to be with your life? This was the most certain way. His lips were pale from blood loss, but his eyes never left mine for a moment. If I had really died, Song Xiao would undoubtedly be sentenced to death. You wouldn't have any further contact with him, nor would you be sent to a mental hospital for the next few decades. You would have a peaceful life. Wei Wei, he paused, his voice even softer. It fell gently on my ears, yet seemed to carry the weight of thunder. I told you, I wouldn't let those things from your dreams happen. I stared blankly at Fu Yun, my throat choked by an invisible force, unable to speak. He was truly a bit mad, willing to gamble with his own life. If he won, it meant we both escaped the shadows of our past lives. If he lost, his death would secure a safe and peaceful life for me. I reflected on the medicine injected into me in a past life, and the sensation of falling from a tall building. I recalled the look in Fu Yun's eyes, tear-streaked. In the dimly lit private room, I remembered the flames that suddenly erupted at Song Xiao's grand wedding. I thought of the lemongrass scent that had clung to Fu Yun for over a decade, constant as the days. Overwhelmed with tears, I suddenly grabbed his shirt fiercely, leaned in, and bit down hard on his lips. The sweet, metallic taste of blood filled my mouth momentarily. That's not acceptable. I spoke deliberately. Your life belongs to me. All right, it's yours. Fu Yun's eyes, usually cold and detached, were now filled with a moist, tender emotion. Everything of mine belongs to you. Back then, Fu Yun found a way to connect with Zhaoyi to gather intelligence. Working with the police, they dismantled an arms deal worth over $1 billion for their involvement in organized crime, intentional murder, and illegal possession of firearms. Song Xiao and others including Zhao Run and Zhaoyi were sentenced to death. All the guests at the birthday dinner and Zhao Run's secret network were gradually being investigated. Although Su Wan had no direct involvement with the case, she was sentenced to 2 years for her auxiliary role. Meng's upcoming phases 2 and 3 of the project naturally continued in collaboration with the Fu Corporation, using work as a pretext. I suddenly found many opportunities to spend time with Fu Yun, regardless of his attempts to seduce me. I consistently refused with a stern face. Your wounds haven't healed yet. We'll talk when they do. After speaking, I couldn't help but scold him, daring to drink with an unhealed gunshot wound. Do you have a death wish? His white shirt, soaked from the hot shower, clung to his body as Fu Yun opened his eyes. His pupils hazy with intoxication, a smile, indulgent yet helpless, curved his lips. I'm sorry, Wei Wei. He was tempting me again. I swallowed, feigning indifference as I handed him the shower head. Take your clothes off and bathe yourself. I'm leaving. I had only taken a few steps out of the steamy bathroom when I heard a heavy thud behind me. Hesitating, concern for Fu Yun prevailed. I turned and hurried back. As I bent down, he hooked his arm around my neck, pulling both of us into the large circular bathtub. With a splash, water flew everywhere. I couldn't help but scream. That was a custom-made dress I just received last week. I'll compensate you with 10 more tomorrow. His hot breath was close to my ear, growing hotter by the moment. Help me, Wei Wei. His kisses landed on my lips, grinding slowly until a stinging pain spread, reluctantly breaking away. Yet, carrying warmth, they trailed downward, disappearing under the water. How can I help you? My voice trembled sharply, swallowed by his fervent kisses. It's too hot. Help me cool down, liar. How could I possibly cool him down? I could only follow his lead, plunging into the steamy tropical rainforest together. Then, a sudden downpour, with a cool touch, it streamed into the depths of the river. It was late into the night when I finally fell into a deep sleep, in a hazy dream. I couldn't tell if it was a past life or the present. It was a time before Song Xiao appeared, wearing my high school uniform. I found a love letter from a boy in my bag. Then, like a film scene switching, the boy stood among a group of thugs, cigarette in mouth, eyes filled with malice. What's so special about the Meng family's young lady? Once I trick her into a date and drug her drink, she'll be at our mercy. The next day, on his way to school, he was hit by a speeding car, breaking his leg. Inside the stark white hospital room, Fu Yun pushed the door open, his face expressionless as he looked at him. This is a warning. Harbor any more inappropriate thoughts, and next time, it won't just be a leg that breaks. Then the hospital door closed. He picked up the phone. On the other end, 17-year-old Meng Wei's spoiled voice came through. Fu Yun, my birthday is